Hello, everyone, and welcome to Herosner Podcast Season 2, Episode 9, with our guest, Dr. Vahan Setyan, in the studio.
Finally.
We are live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm your host, Vic Aslanian. As always, I'm joined by my friend. Should I say it?
Do it.
Bike Malyan.
Yes.
There we go.
That is my new name.
Where we discuss our great Armenian history, covering different people, eras, and topics. It's Thursday, March 10th, 2022. Happy Thursday to everybody. How are you, gentlemen?
Good, how you doing?
Good.
Great.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for
Finally.
being here, man.
Finally. We're getting tired of seeing you through video.
Yeah, I just came here for the cognac, that's it.
That's it? All right, well, here. Cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
Thank you for being here. Cheers to everybody who's joining us. Thank you. All right, so those of you who may not know Dr. Vahan Setyan, which by now you should, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been with us 3 times already. Dr. Setyan is a renowned historian, researcher, and author. He's published top-selling books, which one of them is The Enigma of the Armenian Alphabet and The Armenian Origins of Basque. Great reads. I suggest everybody getting those books. Vahan, before we kind of get into our main topic, which is going to be ancient chemists of the Armenian Highlands, what's new in your life? What are you working on as far as research or projects? Anything major happening?
Well, it's a loaded question because there's so much behind it. Obviously, with research in ancient history and language, that's always ongoing, right?
Yeah.
And it's like a second nature, you might say. At the same time, of course, I'm doing both national and international business planning, working with government officials, tribal governments on healthcare, economic development. I still travel, which is needed. Mostly Arizona, California, Nevada, working with their city officials, congressmen and congresswomen, trying to close the gap in healthcare in underserved communities, working with veterans here nationally. It's all a noble task and a noble journey, and I love what I do. That's why it's kind of difficult for me to say what I specifically do. I would just say that I'm a government official working with both local, state, and federal and tribal governments to bring healthcare economic development within underserved communities.
Yeah.
How my question to you is, how do you make time to do this sort of research outside of everything you just mentioned?
Well,
you know what I mean?
Oh,
this is, even for us, this is a lot.
Yeah, it is.
If with our individual busy lives, and now with everything you do,
right.
This is a lot.
Yeah, it is. It's when you travel, you kind of, your mind wanders off sometimes, and you are able to take notes and tie things together, close certain gaps that you thought you couldn't figure out before, and then obviously you have time to read, and of course I also I'm exposed to many different cultures, including King of Ivory Coast, and as we kind of share cultures, it gives you a lot of ideas and even insight, so certain cultural parallels and so forth. So when you speak with Native Americans, obviously, there's a lot of sharing of culture and heritage and, rug symbols and so forth. So you kind of always go back to your notes and add more notes, and then now you have enough material for you to publish, let's say.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Yeah, but it goes out of my health too, right? You don't tend to sleep full 8 hours or even 6 hours.
Yeah. Now, last time you and I spoke, you were talking about that you're working on, I guess, some kind of a manuscript, right? Was this for the ancient chemists? Is that what you're working on?
It's mostly that, and then I think also it ties into some of the historical falsifications that I see. So as you have noticed throughout my narratives, I always bring in a point of how a certain person or organization is falsifying our history, and how we can kind of mediate that, and kind of I also have a plea to people out there to be more interested in things like this, right? So I'm working on that, obviously with language as well, as far as etymology of things. There's thousands and thousands of English words that you can, and even Greek or Latin, you can always find the root in Armenian. So it's amazing. and it actually gives a better presentation and representation of the term and its essence than just relying on Greek alone.
Yeah, etymology over the last, I'd say personally, I didn't even think about where the root of a lot of words came from. And then over the last year, you see a lot of things, sometimes as weird as it sounds, even with memes that people have created. They're not supposed to be funny. It's just maybe some sort of informative meme. And then you look into it, you deep dive into it on the internet. Like, wait a minute, whoa. This word came from so-and-so place. English words, whatever the case is, right? And the words don't necessarily mean what we say at all.
Oh yeah, and also the other thing is in hard sciences, even in hard sciences, for example, in medicine, during COVID, we realized that even physicians had an opposing opinion about something, right?
Yeah.
Which was an indication that even during hard sciences, you are going to have different perspectives. Not even just the, something close to it, but complete opposite. We had physicians and, medical scientists who were completely in disagreement as far as COVID and social distancing and masks, right? That gives you an insight. Okay, if we have hard sciences where there's opposition on one side over the other, then imagine the soft sciences like history and language and so forth, right?
Yeah.
That means there's more interpretation. That means that's all the mainstream media and academia that covers something, then it's more problematic. There's room for correction.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Are you working on a new book by any chance, or you are?
I am. It ties in with the ancient chemists and the etymology of terms, because there is no way you can kind of divide or even separate our ancients with language. It just goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
And this is where I wanted to ask you eventually was, how did you kind of start the chemist branch of your research?
Right. Well, see, the thing is, the reason why I say chemists is because there is so much advancement in ancient times. I'll just concentrate on the Armenian highlands, and we have seen the map how big it was, right? Thousands of years before Tigran the Great.
Yeah.
And as you can see that there's so much advancement in trigonometry and mathematics and metallurgy, and even in agriculture and animal domestication and building buildings and stuff like that, right? You can't have those people do all that and so not know what they're doing as far as having written documents, for example, or any structured language, and so if you tie that together, it becomes absurd that those people were able to do all these great things, much more advanced, let's say. I mean, if we go back in time, people who were advanced in mathematics and science and metallurgy, at that time there was no Egypt.
Yeah.
There was no Sumer, right? Okay. So, and of course, all the fundamentals that we see in Egypt and Sumer, we can see thousands of years before in the Armenian highlands. So when you see that, then you kind of say, my goodness, they have been experts in things to a point of being even called ancient chemists. And I have several examples, in my book and also in the slides you can show that I can prove a point. So
Well, shall we?
Well, you're here to
enlighten us,
teach us, educate us today, and we're excited about the topic, which is when you told me about that, I was like, wow, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. So let's kind of dive in.
Shall we begin?
Shall we begin?
Are
you guys ready?
All right.
All right. Let's
So
start.
look, we've touched on a lot of the stuff in past episodes with Gevork and with yourself, Dr. Vahan, where we've talked about how even predating ancient Mesopotamia, that we had clear proof in writings and whatnot on walls or granite walls that these people and things, that artifacts that have been found, that we were strong with agriculture, and we kind of helped spread agriculture throughout the land between two rivers, right? And also we've touched on architecture with other individuals. You're here tonight to enlighten us about our ancients and their knowledge of chemistry, right? Let's start as far back as you could take us.
Right. Well, we we have to take into consideration of going back to, let's say, times of Metsamor, 5, 6, 7,000 years ago. And at that time, there was no Sumer, right? But we see a lot of development there. We see early signs of metallurgy and, iron smelting and so forth. When you have that, and then of course the recent discoveries too. For example, one of the slides I show that the oldest sword was found.
You want to bring that up?
Yeah, you can. Actually, I think maybe it's slide 1 or 2.
Metsamor is a fascinating place when we talked about it too.
Yeah, definitely. For example, let's say that the oldest sword that was found was found in ancient Armenia, and then the next slide will kind of show where it actually is. If people have looked at the map, see how it falls within the Armenian highlands, right? And if you go back to the slide, now this sword, besides from being old, it was dipped in arsenic.
Poisonous.
To make it strong. To make it strong, yeah, and poisonous, yeah.
And poisonous.
But to make it strong.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I've mentioned this before. If you are going to build that and you're going to dip in arsenic to make it stronger, you better be a chemist.
Yeah.
You can't just stumble upon, what.
Let's try this.
You have to have thousands of years of brainstorming and development, trial and error to come to a point where, let's try arsenic this time.
Yeah.
Because when the Armenian Highlanders had iron to use, the Assyrian Empire had no idea what it was. That's why they plundered our ancient temple for them to steal the ideas of iron, right? And we show that, and then we see that. So the whole point is that if you have examples like these, you have to. On top of that, obviously, we have found metallurgy sites in Metsamor in ancient Armenia. So if we are looking at from that standpoint, for example, like that, we really have to stop the entire academia and whatever we have read so far, because it's completely such a big outlier.
Yeah.
From the mainstream media, right? Now, I had discussions with chemistry departments and statisticians and so forth regarding the probability of these things, right? But I'll get into that down the line today. But the whole point is we have to allow these kind of evidences to help us rewrite what has been written so far as what the ancients knew, what they didn't know, and how advanced they were relative to their time, how advanced they were for them to come to a point where they're able to determine the composition of metals. And the thing is, we have heard this before, the 7 ancient metals of antiquity. Now, all the 7 ancient metals were already there in Armenian highlands, being produced and smelted and so forth. And I'll go into how it ties into the alphabet. But and at the same time, we have a lot of adversaries too out there, especially inside our own, that constantly try to discount these things without any justification of why. And when I was kind of throughout the years, you have seen me trying to kind of stop falsifications of Armenian history. But the more and more I realized that it's the people inside our tent that's kind of being more adamant in falsifying.
In our own community.
Well, besides the falsification, one thing I noticed on our journey, and I know one time you and I talked about it, Vic, was it's when they always refer to Mesopotamia, they always seem to not include specifics in terms of who these people were.
Yeah.
Mesopotamia is like, and I'm going to repeat myself. It's almost like if let's say 1,000 years from now, let's say America doesn't exist, right? Some sort of ancient land that went away. Who were Americans, right? No one's going to say that, there were Armenians, people from Germany, people from Ireland, people from Italy, whatever, that made up America. This is what Mesopotamia seems to me. Correct me if I'm wrong. Right. There are so many different cultures and peoples.
There were so many,
but nobody ever gets into the specifics of it, right? So it kind of gets lost in that
Oh, sure.
umbrella.
Generalization,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah.
And also, the thing is, they stop there. They don't allow themselves to go back further in time.
Yeah.
Every time they talk about ancient history around that area, whether it's the Fertile Crescent, let's say, or Near East, whatever, however they want to term that thing, they always stop at Mesopotamia, Sumer, where everything was originated, and then they come back to the day present, because for them it's a very easy stop. In other words, there is no reason for them to go back further in time, just for them to finish their curriculum, their academia, their university work, and then for them to publish something. It's already there. So in 1990s, when Port Asar was rediscovered, I thought that actually would rewrite all the ancient history altogether, but that never happened, because it would destroy so many careers, because they spent so many years in doing their dissertations and writing these books, right, for the last 100 years.
Yeah.
And then imagine all that going to waste, because you can't no longer say, let's say Mesopotamia was the initial phase, or Fertile Crescent was the initial part, right? It kind of gives you another time machine to go back in time and then say, okay, we have to go here. Now, when you do that, you bring in geopolitical problems now. Again, most of the Armenian highlands are now, part of other countries,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So we have technically lost 95% of our ancient lands. Which means that as these countries excavate and dig into the ground to find these artifacts, whatever they found of us, they don't say that.
They don't say it. Yeah.
So
Turkey's never going to mention anything
yeah.
about Göbekli Tepe. You know what I mean? They're never going to say anything about Armenia.
On top of that, everything that they find, we're not part of it. So can you imagine?
There's no mention of
Yeah.
it whatsoever.
Can you imagine they find our ancient artifacts that we have no idea what they're doing with it, or let's say they preserve it, but we never know.
No.
Yeah.
It goes to, let's say, in Turkey. I mean, Turkey has the largest antiquity museum in the world, but imagine of all the places, right?
Well, that even that statement itself makes you wonder, does it not?
Yeah, I mean, as you can see, most of our stuff is there. They
Yeah.
find it. They say, ancient Hittites. Well, who are the Hittites?
Yeah.
I mean, you need the Armenian
Or the
language.
Sumerians,
You need
or-
you need the Armenian language for you to understand Hittite. I mean, the Sumerian was an Armenian ancient dialect, one of 100 dialects that we have.
Yeah.
And I always give this example. The Indo-European thing, the examinations, especially, let's say, languages in Mesopotamia and so forth, Armenians didn't start the examinations. They were some of the Europeans, right? And then they didn't know one from Adam.
Yeah.
So they started associating things. So we were never part of that initiation of the last 200 years for us to correct them. So when we didn't have a chance for us to be there, they published thousands of articles, inventing people in the meantime. Urartians and Hittites and all that, Hurrians, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But every single word, is like Armenia, Mitanni, kingdom. The capital was Vachagan.
Yeah.
Who has Vachagan besides from? Yeah. But anyway, so things like that, we never were part of research. We never were part of the initiation of these important topics. And then now what we're trying to do is we're trying to correct this. We're trying to let the world know that, listen, our language is involved in it. If our language is involved in it, then we were involved in it as well. So we need to really eliminate all the ancient people that never lived.
Now, Vahan,
Just
you
imagine
said
it.
something very important. You said we're trying to. I know you are. Who else is anybody like leading this? I guess
If there's some sort of movement.
Well,
movement. Like
No, not really. My kind of, I would say, also role model too. I mean, he deserves that word. Gevorg has been very adamant. Gevorg Nazarian has done a lot of things. Arthur Armin at the same time, but we don't have a unified front. The thing is, when I say we, I also mean intellectually honest scientists and academicians to come together with whatever ethnicity that is, for them to realign all this, kind of put back into the right tracks.
Yeah.
Because by saving the Armenian history, you're saving world history from falsification. Because all the civilization basically is kind of started in Armenian highlands, so you have to protect that, the origination point, for you to know how the dispersion was made and where did people go and so forth. And you have a lot of opposing hypotheses too, like the Kurgan hypotheses and Anatolian hypothesis and of language distribution and dispersion. All that needs to be taken into account, but we don't have enough people to counteract the constant repetition of nonsense that kind of permeates into academia and the media. And then people just read the Wikipedia and then they repeat things.
No, based off of what you just said, right? Things tend to, or we'd like to in this situation, gain steam or snowball, right? What you discuss, what Gevorg discusses, what Harac discusses, all seem to kind of align, right? And not that I'm saying there's some sort of narrative that you guys are from, but you guys are talking about real history, real, actual, fundamental history. And besides you three, is there a movement that has more people, archaeologists, let's say physical archaeologists, and let's say break it down to other echelons of discussions or whatever? Are there more people that are on board with these findings that are like, hey, wait a minute, let's pull the e-brake for a second and like we need to look into this.
Right. Well, is
this actually happening?
We don't have a unified front. If you're asking that.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be a unified front, but let's say there's more people or having these discussions with yourself or Gevorg or Harac or people like you guys.
For example, Hamlet Nersian had a show and still does, and I've been there several times. He's been very vocal about history and falsifications of that. And you also have the Armenian Academia in Armenia who publish great things. Yeah. But it's only in Armenian. It's not being translated in English. So nobody knows.
Yeah.
What's
it's
happening.
Funny you say that, Dave, because there's a lot of articles when we do our research. I had to read it in Armenian and kind of translate as much as possible from all the episodes just to, because there isn't much out there.
Why didn't you ask me for help?
That's fine. Don't worry about it. But
so the thing is, there is out there. It's just that it's not in English.
That's the problem. That's what I was gonna say. Is like somebody, and I've talked to Gevorg about this as well. That we need to dedicate somebody or come up, maybe raise some kind of a little fund and hire that person who needs to go in there and all these writings and just translate them, put them out there, so everybody can read it. But that's the thing. I think people are so caught up with their lives and everything, no one's really paying attention to it.
That's when we need to pay attention. Otherwise, others are going to steal it.
Let me ask you something. You talked about in the past 200 years that, when they started writing all these articles and doing research as far as and leaving us out of it, but 200 years back, Armenians were still there.
Right.
Like, how did they ignore us knowing that these people are ancient people being there? Didn't we have leaders or academics or intellectuals that could have said, hey, wait a minute, these are our lands?
When you take out all the old scientific articles that were published in Europe, including in Britain and England, there was a lot of support on the Armenian language being the foundation of the Indo-European, but it's buried in documents that nobody really reads unless you go in there and look for it. But at the same time, I haven't seen any of our scientists being involved with the Europeans to do language comparisons across the Indo-European spectrum. Even the word Indo-European kind of is a misnomer, but let's say the Indo-European spectrum. I don't see any of us helping them guide through the similarities. Well, I mean, if you read about it, let's say one curious, aristocrat with all his money would go to India, and then, oh my goodness, I found 10 words that's similar to Greek. He funds his book, gets published. Now the other guy comes in, takes his book, uses it as reference. You see, it's kind of a runaway train after that, especially when you have wealthy individuals who have the capability for them to travel, right, to go to Egypt, to go to Mesopotamia, and so forth. So they write certain things their own way, and they have, let's say, even a peer review, let's say, or support. It's also kind of half valid. You can have 10 people of your peers who may be wrong, and then they support what you're saying. It doesn't mean that the entire group is right? Even if they do cross reference and cross checks, because once you say Hittites did this, and then they attacked here, and then Armenians came from the north, and all that. Now it's like an alternate reality.
Yeah, yeah, because it's just an inclusion of like some little snippet.
Yeah, and then the audience has no idea basically whether
Yeah.
you're right or wrong. They just follow whatever you're saying.
Yeah.
Urartians came, and then Armenians came and invaded Urartian lands, and then they took their language and everything else.
Which I've heard somebody ask me about before.
It sounds dumb. It sounds dumb, but how would the student know the difference when you have a professor who's saying all that, and he writes it down because there's a test tomorrow, because he needs to get his bachelor's in history, because
needs to get an A on the test.
Yeah.
No, okay. So wait. I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier. Was some of our scholars and whatnot that look into these topics, and discussions with European scholars that are also maybe trying to discover what really happened in that region. How much conversations are there? How much of like information is there exchanged?
Recently more.
Recently more.
Yeah, I've seen the last 5 years. I've seen a lot of Armenian professors from Armenia collaborating with, let's say, Italian archaeologists and so forth. And many of the recent scientific papers have been written about petroglyphs, Karahunj, Zorazkarer, and actually taking Karahunj and Zorazkarer further back in time to 12, 13,000, 14,000 years.
And I guess touching on Karahunj, I mean, I know if anybody's ever watched, I don't know if you watched, but it was mentioned in Ancient Aliens that was on History Channel, and from then on I started hearing more and more about this, right? Like ever since then, oh man, Armenia was mentioned on History Channel and blah blah blah, right? Have you noticed maybe because of that there was some sort of influx, or did this kind of start prior to this?
See, the thing is,
because we know how much media impacts
of course.
Interests.
Yeah, I mean the idea of Armenia, yes, but the more intellectually honest people come forward just to re-examine something, nothing new examining, just re-examining what was written, they can see a huge problem that is like an elephant in the room and nobody's talking about it. So they take the initiative to examine it and so forth. And they realize that there's so much Armenian influence in language and culture, throughout the world. And we have very new authors now who are collaborating with, the Armenian professors to realize that, my goodness, even Armenians have influenced Scotland and Ireland and so forth, and ancient words and so forth, which can only be described with the Armenian language. And I have always made the point of saying that because Armenia is so old, the language itself contains the history of those people just in the language alone. The USB flash drive that we have? You can think of the Armenian language and its alphabet like a flash drive of information. We just need to take it out. The more we examine it, the more we can find. We can find a huge information load into a small snippet just for us to examine the language parallels in between nations.
Well, I mean, the thing is, somebody has to do it. That's the thing. We need to, I guess, wake up the generation that's first. Actually, the hardest thing is getting people to actually get involved in history. That's the toughest thing.
The interesting thing is
love for history and study it, and then
there's a base group of people, even if they're not scholars or historians, where you and I have talked to a few people where they're really, really, really knowledgeable about what happened, how our language was formed, and everything else. I'm curious why academia hasn't turned more attention than what it already has. This is why I keep asking the same questions. Like, it's such an important part of the world. It's not like You know, every history book talks about, oh, Mesopotamia. Since that's such a focal point for history books to start off of, why isn't there more focus on this? And everyone else's attention is like being diverted to, I don't know, Antarctica or
well, like you said,
something under
because
the water.
there's politics involved.
Understandable.
In it, you know,
but now even if they were to mask it and not say, hey, the Armenians were a part of this, or the Sumerians were a part of this, it seems like any of these discoveries that they want to put into mainstream narrative is outside of that area. Have you noticed this? I mean, personally, I have. It's like you think about it. Why not? You know, I don't know.
Food for thought.
Food for thought. I don't know. Just
let's go back to
down a rabbit hole.
the ancient chemists. As far as I know, we showed a slide as far as the weapons, that the oldest weapons. What other type of artifacts were made from your from the research you've done?
Well, the idea of chariots, was brought, from Armenia to Egypt, and then we have swords and weapons and arrows and at the same time, but not only just the weapons themselves or the artifacts. We're talking about kind of more developed artifacts of pottery and something that if you just kind of look at the parallel between other cultures, you don't see that type of an advancement. And when it comes to the metals themselves, we have to really emphasize the importance of metals being part of the Armenian highlands at that time, and how big of an impact it gave to other cultures and civilizations, and how they took it into their own culture, and they made it into their own, and then they decided to kind of advance the idea through their own cultural ways, you see.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I also want to emphasize something, that just because something, let's say, was originated in Armenia, and it was taken away to elsewhere, we don't want to just say, well, that's ours, that's ours, that's ours. Yes, you kind of developed on top of that, and now it's no longer a type of an Armenian thing.
Yeah.
But the idea, the inception.
The birth.
Yeah.
Inception.
Yeah.
And I like that word, inception. The inception that relates to the ideas of this cultural progress and language and animal domestication, agriculture and science and technology. All the arrows point to the Armenian highlands, and we need to give that credit, because if we do not, we are compromising the integrity of our approach to science. And if we don't do that, basically we're saying that all these cultures came up with these things by themselves, no reason, no rhyme.
Yeah.
Everybody started to have systematic agriculture.
Yeah.
Out of the blue, it just doesn't rhyme with what we see with our own research, let's say. And the thing is, somebody doesn't really need to be an archaeologist who graduated from a university for them to be able to kind of examine archaeological data.
Yeah.
They don't need to be. It's just it's very fallacious. Yes, it's good to have the credibility for that, just because the society is that way. But you're not doing brain surgery. You do have that flexibility of you even helping those archaeologists who are trying to figure out what that actually means. So if you have, let's say, an archaeologist, or let's say a comparative linguist, who is examining the Indo-European language, and nowhere in his dissertation, when you talk about Indo-European, the word Armenian is there, which I have found in many cases like that, then your entire dissertation is wrong. Just because you just missed the entire
Such
universe.
an important key. Yeah.
The entire universe of things. In Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee,
Yeah.
when the student is pointing the finger and then and it hits him, he goes, you're going to miss the entire glory, heavenly glory. That's what happens.
Yeah.
They concentrate on one thing, and if they don't include that as part of their dissertation, they miss the entire picture of it all.
Well, it's such a key piece. It's such a key piece.
And just to emphasize something that The idea of people being interested in history, that's not the point. You really don't need to love history for you to understand the value of your sustainability as a culture. If you know what I'm saying, you have to have that appreciation of that.
Of course. Just, and like I always say, it's just learning about where you came from, who you were, your ancestors, what we've done. It's so important,
At some point, we all get to that point in life where you start asking questions like, wait a minute, the words I say, the letters that I read, where is this all coming from? Doesn't matter what language it is.
Right.
You get to a point, whether it's in your 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever the case is, it happens. It happens to every single one of us.
Yeah.
Before we continue, I want to thank everybody who's joining us live. Audience has some questions. Do you want to take some questions now, or you want to? Yeah. Tallene is asking her question. Let me bring it on the screen. Can words like chariot and words from other early innovations be traced through words in Armenian?
Well, many, I would say the Armenian language itself is the mother tongue of the word Proto IndoEuropean. And it's just that incidentally, the academia has changed the term Aryan into Proto IndoEuropean just for it to sound a little bit more neutral. And when you examine the mother tongue, by the way, Proto IndoEuropean is a hypothetical reconstruction of a language that they think that it existed. There is no written record of it. So in other words, they
So it's theoretical.
Yes,
Yeah,
of course.
yeah.
They have re-engineered. Can you imagine just going back in time? Let's say the video that something breaks and then they reverse that.
Yeah.
They kind of assume if they go back in time, this is how the word was going to sound. That's what Proto IndoEuropean means. Now, we come and say, listen, what is this shenanigans about Proto IndoEuropean? The root word, I can see it's an Armenian language, right? It's an Armenian word. But it says Proto IndoEuropean because those people that have designated that to be Proto Indo-European without indicating that's Armenian, because they're playing it safe. They want to say, you know what, I may be wrong.
Yeah.
I may be right.
And
But let me just say Proto Indo-European just in case
this is
I'm
where,
wrong.
and this is where the politics comes into play.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. But again, if we're able to, if from our language standpoint, if we examine a word and we know that the root words and the essence and the breadth and the depth of that concept of a word is Armenian, then we need to really embrace that as being of Armenian origin, right? And I make this example too. Let's say the word zaytun.
Yeah.
And I wrote a piece about this. Everybody's fighting over what zaytun, whose it is, right? Turks, it's ours, Greek, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But if you look at the fundamental aspect of the word, none of those cultures and languages that are trying to inherit that word have a etymological definition of it. Not what it means, but the word itself, right? Well, zaytun is tight, means title. In other words, to spray something out when you kind of squish it. Tight. Zaytun, right?
Really?
Yeah. So
Wow.
so if you go to Greek and say, what does zaytun mean? Oh, well, it's an olive. Okay, I understand, but you got to see, the Armenian language is a functional language. It describes something for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It gives you a picture of what this thing does,
Yeah.
the essence and everything else, right? That's how you can kind of show people without insulting them.
Yeah.
That listen, I'm describing this to you. And also, if you look at the Indo-European tree, the Armenian language, if you are really intellectually honest, is the base of it all. Yeah, just because it has branched out, I'm not saying, let's say, Irish is Armenia, but the roots are. Same thing with, let's say, Latin and, Spanish and everything else. In Spanish, for the owl, they say boo, buho. We say boo.
Yeah.
They say buho. Okay, which one came first? No, even the boo is like scaring something, right?
Yeah,
So-
absolutely.
but anyway, just to be more real, there are so many examples like that.
Yeah.
So let's say if the word itself, let's say chariot,
Yeah.
if it has morphed into something different, or let's say it's a contemporary word.
There was
example.
like basically you're saying there was like some sort of base to this.
Yeah, there's always a base
Yeah.
in something, and sometimes when you look at the comparative linguists, when they go from one to the word to the other and the cognates and they kind of re-engineer, sometimes it doesn't make any sense if you follow their logic.
Yeah.
But because they say it is, the people just follow that.
And that's consensus. You know, when you have,
it's problematic. Not only consensus, but if you have a person who approves that this is what's going to be,
that becomes the norm.
that becomes the norm.
Yeah.
And the same thing is what it is. When they say, when if you look at a dictionary or etymological dictionaries, you know, the furthest they go is Greek or ancient Greek. You know, sometimes, you know,
Latin.
Latin.
Like they always say in the history books everything's
Latin
based off of Latin. Blah blah
Latin
blah
was
blah blah.
invented in 750 BC.
Ah.
That's it. What was before that? Well, the Etruscans were there. Who were the Etruscans? That's right.
Italians.
So Etruscans, Armenians, Etruscans, Italians, you know, it goes. But so we have to give this room for re-examination, for us to come and say, you know what, we hold an ancient language. Let me help you decipher this.
Yeah.
The problem that we have is that before 5th century, we have nothing left when it comes to literature.
Yeah.
So people hold that against us. They say, well, we don't see anything before 1400s. Either you didn't know how to write, you didn't know how to read. You know, we had to help you to get an alphabet for you so you can, you know, start understanding things, right? But never mind the 10,000, 14,000 years of innovation and progress and everything else. It's like you being an engineer and you don't know mathematics.
Yeah.
And you can even prove, not only you don't know mathematics.
Fake it till you make it.
Not only, I ask you what's 1 + 1, not only that you don't know, you can even prove it on paper that 1 + 1 equals 2. Imagine you're an engineer, you know mathematics. So imagine you're an ancient Armenian with all these innovations. You don't have a language, no alphabet. You had to wait for Messer Mastos to come, to go, or for him to wander around to see what letters he can put together. And the thing is,
now you found validity.
you see.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
it's a big problem.
Yeah, I get it.
We have another question by Madi. She is asking a question for Dr. Setyan. How deeply connected is our identity being high related to astrology?
Well, all the most ancient and the complete, the 12 astrological signs in one place were found in Armenia.
And this has a lot to do with Metsamor.
Yeah, Metsamor, you know, Portasar, Portakar, and all those places. So from an astrological standpoint, actually, that's a very good question. The British scientists and, you know, those rogue astrologists, astronomers, they were the ones that told us that they found incomplete set of the zodiac signs and astrology in Armenia. We have to look at from this standpoint too. Let's go back 14,000 years. From whatever we see, that they didn't have, let's say, lights the way we do now, right? It's all crude. But imagine being advanced, and then the night falls, and you have a beautiful scenery of galaxies upon galaxies of stars and stuff. Imagine thousands of years like that. Imagine the poetry written. Imagine the imagination taking hold. Imagine you seeing, let's say, the Big Dipper and you know, the other different constellations, right? So whatever you see up there, you start, let's say, putting them down to earth and everything else at the same time, which means that they have seen kind of the night sky evolve into all its seasons and so forth. Even the swastika itself, even the swastika is the Big Dipper on, you know, around the North Star, right? It's very simple. That's why the oldest swastika was found in Armenia. We can prove that. Which means that these guys were just looking at the stars, putting all these things, and then astronomy comes in. They want to look, because astronomy is very important for farming, seasonal changes, right? You want to write all this down. You want to also educate your next generation. You have to find a way for you to write these things. You can't just, you have to find a medium how to inform your upcoming generation that, if this happens, this you have to do. We have to write it down. Imagine 14,000 years, 15,000 years, and we have no way of us communicating.
That brings up, I guess it ties in with this slide I can bring up, which is, let me see here.
Yeah, this is a fun one.
All right, so this is a beautiful person, Ganjan, who did it. Obviously, we go through petroglyphs and hieroglyphs all the way to the alphabet evolution, and the carvings on the wall and the petroglyphs. I would say goes at least 18,000 years. Let's just be conservative. Let's say 14,000 years. And all these animal features mostly are goats, and by the way, 80% are goats. And then eventually they are morphed into the symbols that we see all the way until today. Now, it doesn't mean that before Mesopotamians it was animals.
Yeah.
Or they were just cuneiform. We have found the prototypes of our Mashtotsin alphabet thousands of years before, and we can even see it now on the walls.
This is a great.
There we go.
Yeah, look at this thing. This is from my 2012 booklet that I kind of published for people to see the enigma of the Armenian alphabet. Anyway, as you can see the first letter, and then sometimes when they say the letter A has to do with the Phoenicians, and then it has to do with the cows' horns and stuff like that. Well, even before that, we already had this as an indication of.
So this predates the Phoenician.
Oh yeah,
okay.
Phoenicians were not even Semitic; they were Aryans themselves. But that's another topic. I mean, it's not just me saying it.
I wanted to ask another question, but it's okay. I'll refrain.
Yeah,
go ahead.
The researchers say that it's ridiculous. But anyway, as you can see, that's an indication of our current letter, and then a petroglyph of that as a comparison. And then obviously, this can be found. The reason why I'm putting this on a slide, to really have people just to start examining themselves of the value of the alphabet.
Okay, so now go back to the previous slide really quick. If you were one more to the chart, the evolution, okay. Yeah. So if I were to text you one day and say, "Hey, Vahan, can you break down how I would be able to decipher this myself as a layman, not as a scholar?"
Right.
Let's say some of our audience or whoever would want to maybe look at this and be like, "Hey, how, if I were to take a look at this, it's like, oh wow, okay." So what kind of clues would you suggest for us to look for? What kind of things do we want to look into to be able to, oh, wait a minute, we can see this happening, this gradual transformation from petroglyph to now modern day letter and pronunciation, right? Am I making sense?
Yes, you are.
Well, how would a layman be able to decipher this?
Okay. Well, I will give you
just an example, maybe.
I'll give you an example that relates to another topic, and then I'll come back to this.
Okay.
When you look at the Armenian cultural history, there's an element in each era that you can find in the upcoming one in chronology.
Okay.
Let's say you can find an Armenian or Hittite, let's say, culture of a symbol, and then you can at the same time you look at something maybe 1,000 years after, you'll find the same artifact, but it was discovered much later on.
Okay.
So, which means that, let's say, those who included that symbol in later years had no idea that the other one kind of, you know what I'm saying? They were not copying it.
Yeah. Okay.
It was a cultural memory. Somehow the idea of it all stayed, and they continued on with the utilization of that symbol without having a reference that, these people are going to kind of excavate that, and then we'll just see, right?
Yeah.
So same thing with that. if you look at, let's say, a span of 14,000 years, the way Mr. Kanjan did this is for him to show that, okay, well, we didn't have the Mesropian alphabet, let's say 14,000 years, but we can show that the depiction of animals and abstract ideas turn into the alphabet, and we can see the evolution of it. That's why he calls it evolution, because he thinks that the animal depictions were part of our alphabet, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, the Armenian highlands and the Gelma Mountain is the only place we see abstract art. Most of the places are just copies of a dog and a cat and all that.
Yeah.
In Armenian highlands, it's all abstract. It's like they're trying to find a way to represent something by a symbol or what have you.
Interesting.
It's very interesting. I'm telling you. So, which shows that somehow their brain activity was forcing them to kind of describe their world, not only to describe it, but to describe it to their children and for them to take it to the next generation. I think that also that forced the systematic theology, is systematic agriculture and animal domestication. Well, obviously, even the depictions of animal domestication can be found on Armenian petroglyphs.
Yeah.
The carriage and all that, with an ox carrying and all that. Actually, they had the opportunity for them to show us that we're doing this already.
I mean, once you start researching, it's fascinating. Once you see the way they drew everything out, like it just starts making sense.
Yeah, because some of the things, I mean, during our journey, some of the things you'll look into, I'm like, oh, whoa, wait a minute. Okay, now this makes sense, right? But a lot of the stuff, like, again, when you look at certain things, I personally try to tie certain things in. Obviously, I'm not at your level or anyone else's, but I always wonder, what is it exactly that everyone looks for? What kind of pronunciations or anything that say that was known back then that be able to tie things in? Like you said, you're searching in different areas and different time eras.
See, Hamlet Martirosyan, I'm sure you've heard him before. He's out of Armenia, and I think he's a physicist, but he concentrated a lot on Armenian history. He has wonderful publications, wonderful. I mean, actually, one of his books I was the editor to turn into English many years ago. But the point is that the guy is trying to show how the petroglyphs speak Armenian, and he showed how they sound.
That's wild.
It's amazing. But here's the other thing. There was this German scientist who was trying to examine the Portasar carvings. I think I mentioned last time. See, the thing is, he was able to show in English how it sounded, some of the carvings and so forth. And then he used a lot of Armenian words, but he didn't know they were Armenian. To do something, the idea of something happening, he called it ara. For something to happen. Ara, we use that all the time, right?
Yeah.
The idea of a ship, which looks like a half moon and a dot there, he called it a ship or a spaceship. We say it nav, kind of a thing. Like a navak and all that. We can say spaceship, but we can say nav, which can indicate even navid from outer space.
Otanav.
Yeah, Otana, yeah.
So in other words, all these different elements are out there, and they're doing their independent research, and somehow they're tying it back to Armenian language. But we just need more of those intellectually honest professors to bring it part of the curriculum and academia. But that's not happening because there is no financing. We don't have financing. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to put in those millions of dollars that's needed for you to create a university curriculum for this to come. So we're basically are outnumbered, but at the same time, we just enjoy this because it's our essence, it's our livelihood, our kind of survival.
Well, I think my thing is, like you said, financing. Like obviously, we have many very wealthy individuals who rather put a 200-foot statue of Jesus rather than invest in something like this. It's unfortunate, but like you said, if we keep it within ourselves and we do our own research and we learn and we teach our kids and just friends, circles, things like that, eventually there's going to be one person that might just pick up that torch, just like how Gevorg's doing it.
Yeah.
But Gevorg's one person, right? And eventually, I have faith in the next generation. I really do. This new generation, I really do. I think they're starting to question their roots, where they came from, and you're seeing this big movement of this generation that is willing to move back there, do more research, learn about who they were, where they came from. So hopefully, not just one, a group of them can start something like this and then get involved and become researchers, historians, and get involved. And like you said, start working with other historians from other cultures. Right. And bring light to this information, because the truth needs to be told.
Yeah, a Spanish, I think it's Spanish or Portuguese, I'm not sure. You heard of Freddy Silva?
Yes.
Okay, well, I was talking to him, and he said, we were kind of going back and forth. I need to send him my book. He wants a copy of Language as a Fingerprint, and I had some stains on my copies that I have, so I'm telling him, listen, it's so embarrassing. Anyways,
you want my copy?
Yeah. So he basically has done so much research, and he's able to really finally say, all these fundamentals are Armenian when it comes to Ireland, Scotland, everything else. So I told him, there's so much falsification out there, and that the academia just continues on with the falsifications. And he said, listen, I would just, he goes, I have no faith in that being turned around, but let's just publish whatever is the truth and let the book do its magic.
Yeah.
That was his comment on it. So that's what I'm saying. We really don't need to go out there to the academia, to each university, and say change your curriculum. But if we have more of us that publishes something that has a support material and the references and so forth to kind of give a different perspective of things, and we start publishing it, I think it will kind of help our cause.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Now, I have a little bit of not off topic, but somewhat on topic, but slightly veering to a different direction. You know a lot about language, linguistics, and like where letters and whatnot came from, pronunciations, whatnot. Recently, in the last few weeks, I had a friend who I've had a discussion with, and she asked me a particular question about the similarities between the Ethiopian alphabet and Armenian alphabet. Now, I had to ask. She didn't put me up to this. Yeah. It sparked this thought in my mind. I'm like, I know we have.
Sorry, I was muted. We talked about this.
Get in the mic, Vic. Get in the mic. But it's curiosity. Again, I know this topic's come up with a lot of people that have asked me questions, and I'm by no means a scholar. So I just had to ask.
Oh, no. A lot of people talk about that. And when people say, I see similarities between Armenian and Ethiopian, is there any connection? I think they're missing the point.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just the messenger here.
Yeah. You're basically saying that the answer right there, but you're just missing the point of your question. In other words, it sounds so far-fetched, but it's right there in front of you, that you can't really put two and two together.
Said it yourself. The similarities.
The prototypes of our letters are on our mountains, not on Ethiopian deserts. So if we have the prototypes that predate everything else, now you're saying that what it has to do with the Ethiopian alphabet. We got a problem already. We have an intellectual problem. Yeah. Grasping the idea that, how can Armenia be there, Ethiopia there, but the letters will be the same. That there has to be an actual cultural exchange of things. Yes. People going that route. It's like they don't conceptualize the idea that, maybe the Armenian Highlanders were there with the Haikazunis and Hyksos down there. Everybody talks about the Hyksos. Oh, it's another Hyksos. It's like Urartians. Yes. It's like people that didn't exist. But the Armenians themselves, but all of a sudden, but they're a different ethnic group. Same thing like that. Who brought some of the fundamentals to Egypt? Hyksos actually had 3 migrations to Egypt, not just one. It went there before the first dynasty, the second dynasty, the third, and all those things. And then they brought all this information there, the Indo-European elements. Indo-European elements. The Hyksos had Indo-European elements in there, Aryan, whatever you want to name it. So for people to go around the idea, circle it around, but never go to the target,
Yeah.
it's sometimes very frustrating.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I can't blame people because they just go off whatever has been written.
Yeah.
Whatever's presented to them.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever's been shown.
Whenever we have a conversation, even let's say on Facebook or Instagram, people that make a comment always reference their comment to, let's say, somewhere that's written in the internet or Wikipedia. They have nothing else, right?
Yeah.
So I brought up an example of the capital of Mitanni being Vachagan. Now, if you have a guy that says Mitanni was influenced by the Indus Valley, and then we have a lot of Sanskrit and Indus elements in it.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the guy doesn't know what Vachagan means, doesn't know what Mitanni means, right? All he's doing is just saying that during the Mitanni, they expressed their worship of different gods that are, some of them are from the Indus Valley, which is understandable. But the overall representation of the Armenian kingdom of Mitanni becomes skewed with that. You know, obviously, you know, you kind of have this cross-cultural faith, and you accept certain things and you worship certain things. You know, even Mithra is there as part of it, right? So, and the thing is, you know, connecting Mithra's origins to Iran, Anahit's origins to Iran, even though they used it, which is valid, nobody's taking it away from them as them using it. But we're taking away the idea that it originated there. We need to show again. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'm not saying that, let's say, the Persians worshipped Anahit, but Anahit doesn't mean anything etymologically in Persian, but in Armenian it does.
Yes.
Same thing with Mihr, right? They may describe what Mithra is.
Yeah.
They can write poetry about it, but the fundamentals is not there. Just like Zaytun.
Yeah.
So in other words,
Valid point.
anyway.
Yeah.
We've talked about this before.
No, I know.
Many
But,
times. Yeah.
oh, sorry. Did
No,
I
I'm just saying,
Did
like,
I sound redundant?
This-
buddy? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I just had to
Sensitive
bring,
today,
no,
Mike.
no, not at all. I just had to bring it up because somebody recently asked me about it. I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna ask the question. I have to.
Yeah. And actually, the more you ask the same question, actually, that gives you a lot of answers.
The information needs to be retold because look, again, it's a deep topic. It's a very deep topic.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about thousands and thousands of years. You know, multiple millennia of trying to decipher how we got to a certain point. So you can't have like this little baseline answer to something. Like, there's no way I could even personally, as a layman, answer that question to anybody. Where did our language come from? God.
And the thing is, as we discuss this, let's say we try so hard in putting all this into perspective for people, even for ourselves, and then one spiteful professor will see all this and will throw a wrench in it.
Yeah.
One of them is our own, and you know, he would say, well, the Armenian language originated, you know, from the Greeks, the Abagada or Ipenkimta, you know, that was given by the Greeks, order and stuff like that. That's a wrench in the whole working of things.
But why? I mean, we all know who we're talking
Right.
about.
Yeah.
Why? What
Yeah.
was, you know?
Well, because you see, when somebody has the upbringing from going, let's say, from the uncivilized areas of a country, let's say, into Europe, and then let's say he might be spiteful of his people and culture, and then in a European university that they hate the idea of putting, let's say, the Armenian language in the middle of all things, he will find every way for him to get whatever
Spin things.
to spin things around to be spiteful enough for him to say those things. You know, it's not like it's one sentence or the other. It sounds like a temper tantrum.
Which in turn makes him an easy target to
Yeah.
paid lobbyists. If
Exactly,
that might be the
exactly.
case. I'm not saying that is the case,
Of
but
course,
it makes him an easy
of course it's
target.
the case. I mean,
look,
he's one of the
know.
biggest professors in UCL, or was.
fine, but like I said, I'm not. I don't know enough about the situation to be able to pin something like that. But it makes you an easy target.
Yeah.
That's it. You've just opened yourself to that.
Even without even including any names or even
Yeah.
geographic locations of those people.
Yeah.
The idea is that there's spite, there's hate,
Yeah.
and then there's this constant effort for you to stop something that's noble and good. It's everywhere like
Yeah.
that. Good and evil fights and stuff like that. And we need to figure out how we can publish more of the good things and more
Yeah.
relevant things to counteract.
I hate to say it. You fight propaganda with propaganda. I hate to say it. It's true. I mean, look, whether truth can be presented as propaganda, but at some point people have to figure out what's right or wrong. That's up to them. But what sounds more real and what doesn't?
Yeah, but if
When
you
you're
fight propaganda with
No, well,
propaganda,
but
I mean,
when you're presented with another look, everything at the end of the day is propaganda. Even truth is propaganda in some sense.
Well,
But-
if we let's say use another word for propaganda. Let's say a historical book.
Sure.
That wants to relay a history of a certain people.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, besides from Armenian, obviously I read about the Chinese, right? The Egyptians, the Aboriginal Australians. You want to have a complete respect across all
Absolutely.
spectrums. And that's
Absolutely.
how you kind of also see similarities and parallels if there exist and so forth. It's a good idea. Some excuse me. Some people ask me, Vahan, what kind of books would you recommend for me to read about our people? It's a very tough question to answer because in the United States, unless let's say it was translated in Armenian from Armenian into here, it's very difficult for you to provide a book, a textbook that would cover the truthful history of your people without coming across ideas, for example, like Mashtots invented the Armenian alphabet.
Yeah.
Armenians came to Urartian lands. Armenians got the word hike from hike and battle, whatever. And then it stops. In other words, and then of course Tigran the Great, they'll talk about those things, but that's it. It's very, very problematic. It's just me painting, 10% of your portrait.
Yeah, they're like
it's the highlights.
they're-
It's the
they're
highlights of
tentpoles.
our
They're
history.
tentpoles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is that this becomes a repetitive thing, and I just feel so bad that besides, let's say, me telling this person, why don't you go to ArmenianHighland.com? Gevorg wrote all this stuff, right? I mean, you can imagine how much time the guy just spent on that information.
It's like a
alone.
mini encyclopedia.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So many of our information is from there.
Yeah.
It's no secret, you know.
His mind is an encyclopedia. I mean,
Oh, God,
the way
yeah.
the guy remembers dates, it's
I
amazing,
have.
right?
I don't.
Unbelievable.
Like, well,
Unbelievable.
we'll have. I'll go ahead and say it. Like, we'll have like questions prepared for the guy. It's like we'll ask one question, he'll cover 10 of them
I don't know, yeah.
in like 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Just doesn't stop.
So, for example, with that, or I would say, go to academia.edu and download, papers written by Hamlet, Martirosyan, a few of mine that if they're interested with it and stuff like that. We have Kavukjan's on Shumer and Shubertu. Kavukjan's book is very difficult to find, by the way. And even if you find it, it's very expensive.
Not enough publications, or just sold.
It's
Gone.
not being published
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
It's a good idea for somebody out there, if they can listen to me, just make a copy, please, and start PDFing it. Sharing with
Please.
people. Yeah. And I'm sure that many people have come across wonderful articles and books that in foreign language. We should copy that too. So that way, when next time we're asked, what can I read, I would say, what, here's a link, or go here and purchase this, or here's a copy, by the way, of a PDF
Yeah.
that you want to read. And I think that this should be a norm of when a person takes this wonderful book that they have found to share it with children. Even do some exercises. Let's say we're in a generation where most of our kids are going to speak English. they're going to have difficult time speaking Armenian. But, you know, we can give them some examples of how English words are, you know, originating in Armenian language by just the regular conversation. And I think they will find it very fascinating for them to do their own research, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I can attest to that. My oldest, who is learning Armenian history and things like that, she's fascinated now.
Yeah.
And obviously, us doing the show, she listens to it and she goes back and forth. She'll learn something. She'll like, Dad, I remember you talking about this.
But my
you know?
dad said something else.
Yeah, but you know, I try to obviously give her as much information as possible. You know, I'm learning myself as well. Like, you know, this is new for us.
Yeah, all of
you
it.
know?
All of it is.
This
But
is
you know,
also a way of purification,
yeah,
too, if you think about it from a spiritual
it's
standpoint.
like reverse brainwash.
Yeah, you're
really
kind of
is.
cleansing yourself.
Absolutely is.
Yeah.
Tallinn said, you know, she's like, I teach an Armenian history course for our local community college. My students are elder Americans. People are fascinated by our story and want more exposure to it. So there you go.
great
That's a
to
perfect
hear.
example
That's
right
really
there.
great to hear.
Yeah, and let's see here. Manvel Khachatyan says, hi, Vahan. I don't know if you know him. Says, hi,
Oh, yeah,
guys.
of course,
Yeah.
sir. Of
He
course.
just ran into the show.
is.
Welcome, Manvel. Thanks for everybody joining us. We appreciate it. We're live. So let's go back more on
let's
the
go.
chemist side of things.
Yeah.
Let's bring the slides back up.
That one.
This one.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about this. I'm sure maybe, hopefully, the audience can see at least the majority of things on here. We want to emphasize the 7 ancient metals of antiquity, which could be I put in order of as far as just putting it out there, but we know there was the first one, the second one. The first one was gold; it was being smelted, and then copper, and then the rest. And the 7 ancient metals of antiquity, if you put it into the diagram there as a seven, we have seen this symbol, only this symbol on our walls.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's very unique also when we see this, so much effort taking place for this symbol to be on our walls and on the churches and so forth. You know, it's very ancient already. But at the same time, the reason why I want to show this is because, which is the next topic, is that all these 7 ancient metal elements are tied to our alphabet, especially the proton count, the atomic numbers. Now, there has been some commentary, again, with one of our own, that really ridiculed the connection, even though there is no counter argument as far as that is not being the case. Without emphasizing on that, which is very easy for me to refute what he's saying, the idea of the atomic numbers being tied to the
Mendeleev's chart.
chart, and the alphabet started around 2002, 2004 in a very innocent article. And then eventually it was noticed by another in 2004. And then it went on the internet. And then eventually it kind of became a runaway train. So back in 2012, I wrote the booklet called The Enigma of the Armenian Alphabet for me to have the first English version of a logical examination of the connectedness between the ancient elements, the periodic table, and the Armenian alphabet.
Yeah.
Now the Mendeleev chart, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I just picked up my phone to check, was recognized in its official form in 1869.
There you go.
Right? So, now carry on in terms
Thank you
of
for that.
what this predated.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Actually, as he brought up a very important point, which I wanted to do, which I'm glad he did. Okay, so if we have the proton numbers of 1868-69, we have a dictionary in Armenian in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
Excuse me, 19th century, which
19th
is
century.
1800s.
so we can show that, let's say, the word for gold, voski, was written a certain way.
Okay.
That's already proof that we didn't have to wait until
Mendeleev.
All right.
Yeah.
Now the problem is that they say Mendeleev saw all these things in his dream, like anybody else.
Yeah.
It's like
Why is everybody's thing?
A vision
Yeah.
came to.
yeah. It's just like you're finding it somewhere, and then you say, you know what, I'm gonna say I saw it in a dream. That makes it more interesting.
Interesting. There's a story behind it.
It's
you know,
cute.
like, yeah.
It's cute.
All right, so we take, let's say we take the gold, Voski, or let's say silver or lead, all of them. I mean, all of them, all 7 of them. Now, if there is a statistician out there, the guy that knows statistics or a woman that knows statistics very well, let's say the first one is a pure accident. Now, if you add the second one that matches to the proton count, or the third one or the fourth, now it's astronomical.
Yeah, it's like the saying goes, how many coincidences before it's mathematically impossible?
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, the once you add the second and the third and the fourth all the way to the 7th, the number is astronomical. Now, I took the information. Actually, I shared it with some of the chemists before, by the way. I'll attest to that. I even took it to Arizona State University, Department of Chemistry and Mathematics. And I wanted to show them that, listen, there is a tie between, I showed them, right? We put the word for gold, Voski, silver, and lead, mercury. And I even showed him on a dictionary that, listen, it predates the Mendeleev, this is how we did this, and so forth. Now, although it is very weird, right, for him, he can't say, I didn't see it. In other words, he can come and say, you know what, it's nothing, it's just a coincidence, because I already showed him that it cannot be a coincidence.
Yeah.
But it turns into a paradox. We have a lot of paradoxes out there, right? Like mathematicians are trying to figure out, even paradoxes in time travel.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. The Armenian alphabet tied to the periodic table is a paradox, because you have a word that has been structured a certain way that ties into the alphabet and ties into the proton count on Mendeleev that predates Mendeleev. Now, if these were just
Insane.
if these were just any other element that we didn't see in history or in the past, I would say okay. But we're talking about these 7 metal elements of antiquity in the Armenian alphabet that relays, let's say, the proton count, the atomic number of the same elements. All right. Now, let's say that the ancient chemists knew that this was the case. Now, did they decide to write or say the word a certain way?
In a certain way,
For it to reflect the proton count for the next generation so they can know what the proton count is? Or maybe the word itself has more than just the proton count information.
Yeah.
But it's not only just the 7. Molybden is there and many other elements right now. Actually, you can start and you can figure that out, that it actually it's up together. Even the word, even let's say the word mercury.
Yes.
What do we say? We say Sandik, right?
Oh.
Okay.
But the mainstream narrative is based off of which scientist that supposedly discovered it.
Well, that's see, like
see what I mean?
I know,
Yeah.
I know, and I wanted to use the word mercury for a second.
Yeah.
Mercury was the last metal element of the 7 antiquities. Okay,
Yeah.
so in the current contemporary way, we say Sandik.
Yeah.
Now, if we say Sandik, it doesn't give you 80, but gives you 81 as a proton count, which is a problem. But if we say Sangik, it gives you the exact one. However, there is also another word for Sandik, which is Gentani, lively. Mercury is a lively one, right?
Yeah.
If we do Gentani, it comes to 80. Now, Sandik and Gendani, you see, and
Okay.
in both terms, and
Oh.
So this is how it was broken down.
yeah. So now imagine, let's say we have these 7, and that's why I feel that the alphabet itself is more than just 36 letters.
Yeah.
I think we have to look at it from 3D. Maybe there's a dimension that we don't see.
4D?
We don't even have a cipher. See, I think that our alphabet needs a cipher that we don't have. It's like, here's an example. Us three of us, we go to China. We don't know we're going to China,
Yeah.
but we see these weird things. Unless there is a cipher or is a cross-reference of how they sound, what they mean, we'll never know what it means. True?
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Same thing with our alphabet. I think that it hides certain information, that it needs a cipher that we have lost. Either we
But what
lost,
would you reference it to be able to cipher?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we did have information of this alphabet.
But
And-
like, can you give me an example of like a letter that you're saying that could be ciphered?
Not a letter, but I think that even the way it's put together into the 36.
Oh, you mean
Like
as
you
far
mean
as
you
the
mean
order
the
of it?
order of it,
Yeah,
like
the-
the
the-
chronological,
yeah,
or
the-
not chronological, but like its
The
actual
order of it. Yeah, here's an example. Let's say if you take all the words, all the letters of all the 7 words that we discussed,
Yeah.
and you just highlight across the 36 letters. Oh, by the way, it's the original is 36. It's not 39.
Yeah, it's not
right?
it's not 38.
Yeah.
38,
So
39,
because we don't have any words with f.
yeah.
But anyway,
You mean football? No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
Sorry, I had to-
that was your genius moment.
or a f, or
Football
a
hide and seek.
f, or the f in Rafi. Anyway,
Sorry, I
That
had
was
to
good. That was
lighten it up a
good. That
little
was
bit.
good. That was good.
now if you move around the letters even by 1 degree, let's say you just interchangeably change it, the entire edifice falls.
Yeah, there's some sort of balance that it has to sustain.
Okay, so if we have Voski, we have, let's say, Archich, we have all the other Gapar and so forth. If we do the mathematics and we come to a proton count, we cannot change the order. We do reverse engineering. We reverse engineer to show that if we are able to find the proton numbers, then we cannot allow these letters to change in their location.
Yeah.
In other words, we kind of prove ourselves indirectly through re-engineering that these letters were there even before Master of Mashtots.
Now, this is what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So we can kind of almost show that obviously Master of Mashtos was not in the time of the antiquity of metals, right?
No.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, he wasn't around.
Well,
Metam.
after.
Right.
Well after.
So we can kind of show that not only were the letters of 36, but also these letters were the same way before Master of Mashtots. Now, whatever Master of Mashtots did, I would say the most that he did was he brought back this.
It's
you know-
almost like as if he rediscovered something. I mean, it lack for a better word.
Yeah, I think that between 301, around 301 to his time, it's about 100 years. So it's even let's say two generations of destruction.
Yeah.
The third generation will never know what was before that. So I think what happened is whether he was real or not, I'll put it that way too, whether he was an actual person or not, the wonderful thing that he did associated with him was for us to see it now that it was kind of revived.
I don't know if people can see it. I mean, I wish there was a bigger, we could have zoomed in, but
Oh, believe me, people are going to Google this right away.
yeah,
They're gonna
if
look-
you
Yeah.
guys, the evolution
Yeah.
of
Is there
Armenian
like a
alphabet, look at it.
PDF or like a document
Oh, yeah.
online that people could find?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Look
this is
for it,
out there.
folks.
Yeah, look for it. And again, the evolution of Armenian alphabet. But there is a timeline where it shows when Mesrop Mashtots rejuvenated the
Yes,
letters, and
yeah.
right before him, and you see how our letters were there, and not all of them, I guess,
Yeah.
but most of them at least were there. So very interesting.
And then I personally think that during the Araratian or Artian times when cuneiforms were used, I think even at that time, these letters that we see now, they were also part of the priestly or the priesthood language for literature. When I say priest, I mean pre-Christian priests.
Yeah, the clergymen
clergymen,
that kind of controlled.
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, I think we had the same literature as we see today, and there was part of the priesthood that held all the information. and I think Master of Mashtot's revelation of the letters
Kind
is a metaphor for the world kind of found the secret of
They figured it out.
of Armenian literature.
Interesting.
I think that's what it means. He's a symbol of kind of giving it to others, I guess. And then we also can prove that Georgians and other
Yeah, that's
Lesbians,
right.
you know,
Yeah,
they
we
were
talked
from-
about this too, about how he helped kind of discover or figure out
he gave it to 'em,
gave them the information for like the Georgian alphabet more or
Yeah,
less.
I mean, if you look at the Georgian alphabet now,
Those letters are weird, man. Have you ever? Yeah.
Well, the oldest version is exactly Armenian, but it has morphed into. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It morphs into their cultural tangent, and then even.
But that's natural. I mean,
But
it's
exactly.
a progression,
anybody who's ever been to Armenia and like driven further north, like towards Alaverdi or whatever the case is, when you get to like the Georgian border, if you look at some of the road signs and whatnot, it's so similar to our letters to this day.
it's like saying
It's so
about
s-
Ethiopian and Armenian.
Yeah, but you look at like the way they're shaped. I don't know how to read any of their letters, right? But you're looking at it. Whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah,
Hey.
the I, like we say I,
Yeah.
it looks like an O.
Yeah, but it has like a little thing on top of it or whatever. Yeah, it's really weird. But observation I made.
Yeah. So you want to talk about this page?
Yeah. Let's talk
Yeah.
about this page.
Okay. For the audience, I found it important for you to have a visual representation of where Göbekli Tepe or Portasar is in our ancient Armenian lands, and I'll show you another slide after this so you can see it. Can you go one more?
Yeah.
One more. Okay, so some people think it's bigger than this, but I would say this gives a proper representation of the ancient Armenian highlands. Okay, from the left side you can see almost half of current modern day Turkey, ancient Armenia. Then you go up to Georgia, and then Azerbaijan side from sea to sea all the way down. You can see Kilikia and all those places. Can you go to the second? Yeah, the next one.
Next one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. From the reason I'm doing this is for you to see where Portasar is compared to our area. Now, let's do a mental exercise. Let's go back in time. As you were going back in time, Turkey goes away, Georgia goes away, Azerbaijan goes away. To a certain respect, the Persian Empire goes away. Okay, so now you see where we stand on the I would say the left hand side in the yellow piece. Now, Göbekli Tepe or Portasar was found in our region, and not only that, but if you go back 2 slides back, I want to show something. Just 2 slides. One more. Yeah. So next to Göbekli Tepe, you see Karahan. Okay. People think that Karahan is older than Göbekli Tepe, and many things have been found there. Now, Karahan is only Armenian, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Karahan.
Karahan, yeah.
Now, it doesn't matter who it is. I mean, if you're going to examine the word Karahan or say Karahan without referencing that, it's at least it's an Armenian etymology, we have a huge problem, because you are examining an ancient Armenian site that has the word Karahan, and there is no word Armenian anywhere
Yeah,
in
nothing
the document,
associated to it.
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
document. Now, many of the ancient artifacts, the oldest things that can ever be found, and I want to emphasize, animal domestication, agriculture, oldest shoe, leather shoe, oldest winery.
That was found in that region.
in
yeah.
Armenia.
Yeah. The shoe.
in Armenia.
Okay.
In
Yeah.
Armenia now.
Yeah.
In a cave. Oldest skirt, you name it, was found in our borders that I just described.
Yeah.
And I think that people should take the responsibility of taking a mental leap of tying this together, at least, help us out, guys.
Connecting the dots.
Please, connect the dots, because we are seeing all the firsts of human civilization. When I say human civilization, again, we're talking about, the shift from hunter and gatherers to,
Yeah.
more of civilized, I want to say civilized, but more of a systematic way of doing things, right?
Way of life.
Yeah, systematic way of life and,
Yeah.
and more structured, let's say. All these first are found in Armenian highlands. And then even the language dispersion that we talk about, the Indo-European or Aryan, more and more as time goes by, even though people just so adamant about the Pontic steppes and the Kurgan hypothesis that it was in beyond the Black Sea.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense because they talk about horses, and if we talk about horses, the scientists have found the biggest lot of domesticated horse bones in Armenia. I mean, right? If that's going to be the case, why can't, let's say, they go up to the Pontic steppe, and then after that it goes to other areas? So, in other words, one needs to be before two, and in other words, that we need to have a mental representation of what really transpired. So I just want to show you that. And so once we follow this logic, we need to, don't be bothered with Turkish words over there.
Oh no. I mean, I don't even know.
I mean this to the audience. They in a way we kind of. Because it's in modern day Turkey now, and we have even German sellouts that they get paid from government of Turkey for them to represent this as that versus Cortázar, right?
Yeah.
I mean, why would you say that?
Isn't German their national second language?
Well,
I think so, isn't it?
In Turkey?
Yeah, in Turkey. I think
didn't know that.
German is their national second language.
Yeah, a lot of Turks are in Germany.
Yeah. 3 million.
So as you can see, I mean, when these scientists, they go to our ancient lands or modern day Turkey, they will be funded by them at the same time. So it's kind of difficult for them to say anything that's Armenian, even though very likely, right? Or at least inviting some Armenian scientists to come there to do dual examinations with them. But anyway, I just want to show you this. So every time that you look at the map, especially the idea of Near East, don't use the word, Eastern Anatolia, please. It doesn't make any sense. It means Eastern, East. I don't know. You're just inventing new vocabulary words.
Now, when from your experience, when you do mention, obviously we use Armenian Highland within us and within our community, and we always try to emphasize Armenian Highlands. Do you get like weird responses when you say Armenian Highlands?
No, they want to ask what it represents. I'm saying Near East, and when you say Near East, it kind of covers it all.
Okay. No, what I'm saying, do you get challenges from like, well, why are you calling it? Or no, that's not what it's called. Or
no, because if they go that route, and they would say any other term, they're gonna be the ones holding an empty sack. In other words, it's just a.
But at some point, enough people mention it in their papers or in their publications, it becomes the social norm, right? Or like an accepted term that some people talk about.
Yeah, the way we're trying to integrate the intellectually honest way of representing that place as Armenian Highland is the same effort of saying people not to say Turkey, but modern day Turkey.
Yeah.
Right? We need to kind of educate even the academicians for them to say, if you found something in Turkey, for example, which let's say is beyond 1100 or 1200, you have to say modern day Turkey. Otherwise, you look like a fool. When you say we found Turkish artifacts dated 4000 BC, and obviously they love it over there. But the thing is, if a guy doesn't know anything from Adam, reads that, he's going to say it. He's going to repeat it.
Especially within their own culture.
Yeah, so as we push, let's say, the positive things of cleaning the water, we also need to emphasize and correct whatever is negative.
It's like saying we found a dagger from 200 years ago that was American.
Yeah.
It's like,
I mean, 2,000-year-old United States dagger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was American.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's not. It's not correct.
And again, the other reason why I want to do that is the words themselves, carry a lot of weight, and we got to be careful what we say.
They do because it's the initial response for any sort of viewer.
Yeah.
Even people, especially people that don't know much about something that's in depth, and let's say it strikes a chord with them right away, where they're like, whoa, wait a minute, that's not what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
And then I do have a couple of slides at the back.
Let me bring this back up.
I want to show something as far as
Was it this
you know,
one? Or?
yeah. Well, I want the audience to read it. I mean, I'm sure some of them have read it, but you know, he's a French philologist, and he considers Armenian to be perfect in its form, and perfect from beginning. Now, you cannot have no alphabet until, let's say, the 400s, and then everything becomes perfect.
Yeah.
Right. And the way he kind of describes the Armenian alphabet a certain way, it's very fascinating, because he's trying to be so intellectually honest, but at the same time he represents it as poetry too. If you read it, you know, he kind of feels this essence of the alphabet, you know, to be so perfect that he's able to comment on it. It's very difficult for a philologist to say something that it's perfect, or has it, or it doesn't need to be changed, or doesn't need to be improved, and all that. You know, it takes a lot of guts for you to be a philologist, and for you to have examined all these letters and languages, and then come to a point where you say, listen.
And he said this more or less, what, let's say
Early 20th century.
early,
Well, at least,
early 20th century, right?
Late 19th, early 20th century.
Did this individual, from your knowledge, Vahan, did this individual, or was one of his main areas of focus was studying Armenian, let's say, phonetics, or
he studied Armenian language.
That was one of his like main areas of focus.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, he had to, especially the phonetic representation. I mean, he had to examine it. If you go to the next slide, I think they have another one. And I have so many, but I don't want to. Okay, so let's talk about Robert Ellis for a second.
Okay.
Many people know him. Many people don't. He's the one that wrote the Armenian origins of the Etruscans. And just the title itself, you realize what it means to the Italians now, right? They have to eat this up. But anyway, although he had some adversary as far as his commentary, you know, from our standpoint, we're able to prove his conclusions as far as the Etruscans and everything else. But look at what he said. He says it must be remembered that, you know, while the Phrygian and Greek are ancient languages, the Armenian is the oldest form that we possess, although in its modern form. Okay, so there are two ideas there now. One is that the Armenian represents the oldest. Even, let's say, if he compares the Armenian to Greek, he already can tell you from his comments that he thinks that Armenian is older in many respects than Greek, which is obviously the case now. We, you know, even archaeogenetical evidences show that the Armenian is older than Greek. You know, we gotta, you know, accept that. I mean, otherwise we're not getting anywhere.
But we're committing heresy here, guys.
Yeah. on top of that, that's right. That's right. Well,
sorry, I had to say it.
It's all good. Now, beyond him saying that, you know, look at the last phrase after the comma. He says, "Although in its modern form." The guy recognizes that there's something that's missing in the Armenian language and its literature, and we have to resort to the modern form. All he's doing is basically saying that I have reversed engineered from the modern form that we have, which is the only thing that we have, and I have found that the Armenian language is older than the Phrygian and the Greek. Now, at his time, there was no modern technology that we have today. He only had language to examine these things. Now, after 100 years later, we are proving the things that he's saying. That's why I always say the best and most useful tool in ancient history examinations is language itself. Language holds the key.
It's true.
Language is a fingerprint. Language holds a huge volume of information. We just need to find a way for us to reveal all this. And, you know, we can talk for hours about this, but, you know, I'm sure there are other people with questions. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah, guys, questions.
Yeah,
'cause this is
don't be
awesome.
shy.
Don't
You guys
be
can ask
shy.
him a question. We have Nato, who actually, let me bring up his question on
Yeah.
the screen. He says, any words on Armenians being all the way to the Bosphorus Strait before Troy was taken from Armenia by the Greek, then Hellenized?
Oh yeah. Well, he has a point. Even Troy, like Tir, is the root word Tir.
Yeah.
Tiro.
Yeah. We I think we talked. About
Yep,
this
yeah, we
sometime.
talked
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, so even the idea of Tir and oi, or
Yes.
the Greek suffixes and all that kind of muck things up,
Yeah.
because it's just like a dress, right?
Yeah.
We don't see what's under that. But if we go to the root words of things, of course, and he has a very good point. Remember when I showed you that map? I said it's approximately what it covers.
Yes.
Some of them that I know, they actually cover the entire Turkey side all the way to the Greek Isles, because I guess they're trying to go back much further back in time with the language diffusion, and with language diffusion they want to cover that area. But I want to be a little bit safer too, because at least from my standpoint, we can prove a lot that we don't need to really go beyond the entire Turkey side. But from Nato's standpoint, he has a valid point, because many of the Armenian elements can be found in the Mycenaean, civilization, and Troy, and in the Bosphorus area, and so forth. So if we utilize those elements as well, he has a valid point.
We got, what is it saying? What is the
etymology of Ararat?
All right, it's a good question.
By the way, everybody, thank you for the questions.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, keep asking.
Yeah.
And Angela Terian, she's from Armenia, by the way, has incredible books. She, bless her heart, she's trying so hard to translate her stuff into English, and so some of them are available, by the way. And I want to tell the audience, find her books. I'm sure she can appreciate this commentary. Many of the Armenologists. Let's forget about those that are trying to tarnish the name. Okay, we have a lot that are just very bad at trying to falsify our connectedness to Ararat and all that. So Angela Terian and many others see that as it being a piece of creation. Ararat or Ararhat.
Mm-hmm.
So Hat means peace, and Ararel, means creation. So they think it's a piece of creation. I personally think that would be the case. And I had a commentary on the word, Ara and Ararel. Ararel is a verb. Even Ara is a verb. So if we're describing a god or a creator, he's in motion.
Yeah.
Unlike any other gods that are kind of described with a certain name, Ara is an actual perpetual moving.
Yeah, it's
entity.
like motion. Yeah.
It's a motion.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
unique. So from that standpoint, I think that Aran means a piece of creation, and it kind of falls in line with not only from, let's say, biblical perspectives, but we can go back further in time. Let's say Sumerian perspectives, because the Sumerians were depicted as people standing on a mountain. There is no mountain in Mesopotamia, right?
Yeah, no.
That's
it's
what I'm
It's
saying.
land between two rivers.
That's what I'm saying. They represent themselves, being between the peaks of Ararat, and that's how they kind of show that. And they also referred as Ararat or Arata as the homeland of the gods and stuff like that. The reason why they say that is because they were more advanced than them. So they were trading between back and forth and lumber and stuff like that. They had to bring lumber from northern mountainous side. How can their lumber be in Sumer if they're not trading? Anyway.
Oh man,
I'm talking too much, man.
No, you're not.
No.
I mean, everybody's enjoying listening to you, and
I'm like constantly painting pictures in my head, man.
I'm thinking, when is this time machine thing gonna,
awesome. Wait, are we supposed to ask
No.
the time
I'm
machine
talking about
question?
actual time machine gonna be made. I just want to go back. I want to
Listen,
witness
I volunteer.
this. I just like.
Sign me up too.
I
I might just get a one-way ticket.
100%.
Just
go,
gonna want to
man.
wait till you get
I
me
wanna
out of
go,
this
man.
time.
Harach
Get me
is
out of
joining
this
us
time.
as well.
Harach?
Yeah,
Hi,
Harach,
Harach.
the wizard is here.
Uncle
He
Harach.
says the age of the Armenian DNA also attests to Dr. Setyan's
Setyan's
claims.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
what else can you tell us about as far as the chemists? You know, was there anything we missed? That
Alchemy,
But let me just one important comment for the scientific community out there. Okay, I don't want to ruffle any feathers. As
Please
much as we want to take our imagination to take hold, we have to rely on reason, logic, and evidence. Sometimes that's not even enough for us to solve the enigma and the paradox that I described today. It's just inconceivable, right? But at the same time, I think that we need to just show that those people really had a knowledge of how nature worked, how they were able to utilize nature and understand the metal smelting for them to create these things for the benefit of the society. And I think what happened was throughout the years, throughout the thousands of years, and the destruction and many destruction of the libraries and all that, this information went away. And then it was revived in the Middle Ages when alchemy came.
Yeah.
Now, alchemy was very important during the
Renaissance era and whatnot. Yeah.
and one of the most important element was the salt. And actually, many of the practitioners of alchemy went to Armenia to get a special salt from Armenia. And we have a lot of the, we use salt right now, right? We have places in Armenia where people go there to get treated by the salt. So it was called, Pierre de Armenie or many other words. So the Armenian salt was the philosopher's stone. And so anyway, so you can see that's what I mean. It was a crude chemistry, evolved throughout thousands of years, forgotten, and then alchemy sprung, and then now
and you
chemistry
start,
now.
and you start backtracking.
Right, that's
you
right.
have to backtrack.
Yeah.
Like where's this coming from?
So I think that the Armenian alphabet is a bridge. So one of the bridges, at least, between ancient chemists to chemistry now and the Mendeleev and all that, all his dreaming nonsense. And I don't know. I'm sure somebody gave him listen.
I mean, look, this is what they teach in school, right? like I said, I just looked it up. It was on Wikipedia, 1869.
And he got a Nobel Prize for it. Good for him.
Fine,
Yeah.
fine. But there's this is topics for another day.
Yeah.
But there are things that modern day historians will claim that were found or founded by certain individuals in our recent modern history that, honestly, in my opinion, based on my research, not pertaining to this topic, were just rediscoveries.
Yeah, but for all those people also,
they were just rediscoveries.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, when I'm sure there are people out there that want to find a more reasonable way to see all the connectedness by just discounting it as pure speculation of pseudoscience.
Yeah.
But here's the problem, though. I started from a point of skepticism. Okay,
Which is important.
I forgot that I was Armenian. I forgot that I know the alphabet. I'm just examining it to see whether I can find any holes in it, and I still until today I can't find it. I can't seem to describe.
It's difficult to let go of those biases for anyone from any culture. From any culture, this isn't just about Armenians. From anybody, whether they're Russian or whatever. But that's interesting. Curious about that. How did you manage to kind of let that go at some point when you're like, whoa, wait a minute. There's more and more that you're figuring out that is tied into our culture or the Armenian Highlands. Yeah. Did you not maybe at some point get a little way too excited? I mean, it might be.
Well, see, the thing is, it's not the excitement. It's actually the frustration.
Okay. It's an interesting way to look at it.
It's the frustration that you see all these ties and dots that can be connected. And you just feel relieved that you're one of them that you can see. the connectedness and the joy of sharing this to the world, whether they want to believe you or not. But that's why I try to do my best to reference everything that I write for people to read the references first before they go into my claims. Because I think that's a wonderful way to even give the readers the opportunity for them to criticize you.
Sure.
I think it's the
Receipts.
best way to write. And
Receipts.
I've read so many books that I've noticed a lot of historians are starting to do that when they present, like they write the references first and then bring in there, and that's the perfect way.
It's a beautiful way of doing it. And then here's the other thing, that sometimes when people write, if you look at the back of the book, they don't say which sentence are they supporting. They just have this bibliography page from A to Z. You have no idea which book supports which claim.
Yeah.
That's very problematic, because just because you had a bibliography in the end doesn't tell me that actually that bibliography is supporting your claims. You
Of
just
course,
need to have it there.
Yeah.
But I think what I'm doing is
It's almost like just to say like, oh, it's there.
reference,
It's
yeah.
reference. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
but
where I
for-
got it from. Yeah.
But what I did was I was very critical upon myself. I said, okay, what can I say that is gonna turn around and bite me if we have somebody that can come in and say you're saying this in here's proof that you're wrong, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to take that cautious route, and I think that it's kind of working, because the more I research, the more it kind of supports the claims that I'm making, especially now that I get excited that I see more and more foreign independent researchers coming to the same conclusions. So that's why sometimes I get frustrated when we say, listen, Armenians have been saying this for hundreds of years, and then now we had to wait a foreigner to say something for everybody to cheer.
Now this leads me to my next question.
This
Is
inferiority complex is a huge problem.
bingo. So now, if let's say in the life of Dr. Vahan Setyan, you're researching or you're connecting the dots, and you come to some sort of revelation, right? And you want to burst and tell the world. Do you want to extend yourself to make it look like it's foolproof where nobody can counter argue this? Or are you leaving it open to debate?
Right. Well,
Do you get to like a certain threshold where you're like, okay, let's leave this open to debate and then we'll figure the rest out? Or do you take yourself to another level where nobody can say anything against this?
I think there's so much that we want to save and protect, that I try very hard for me to have everything, all the ducks in a row, and all the best references that I can find before I publish something. Of
course.
Because there's so much already have concluded and half-assed documents in the internet and the media. I want at least something to be, at least intact for it to be used for any type of a discourse they might have. And the same thing with the alphabet, for example. We want to prove that,
Of course.
which I said, we want to prove that our alphabet and the words that we used for these metal elements came before not only Mendelev's periodic table, right, but before anything that came about that would kind of hint that we took it after the fact, or that the word voski for gold was structured after we found Mendelev's for it to put with a proton number.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, though: the Sumerians.
What was Gold's periodic chart table number?
I think it's
70, 72?
Yeah, 79, I think.
72 or 79, yeah.
So here's the interesting
I'm
thing.
controlling too many things here for me to look it up.
Yeah,
So-
I think it's 79.
So the Sumerians used the word for gold for guski. Voski,
Guski, yeah.
Yeah.
So in other
Guski.
words, maybe the Sumerian use of the word guski was another variant of voski.
79.
Yeah,
AU.
Dialect, right? It could be
That's
different
what I'm
pronunciation.
saying. That's what I'm
like, you
saying.
know.
The Hittite, the Hurrian, the Sumerian, the Basque, all those academicians, they're saying that those are isolates. Well, for you they are, but from my standpoint, I can understand what's really happening. I can say that it's another variant of an Armenian dialect. Here's another thing. We have more than 100 dialects right now.
Yeah.
Okay, two dialects cannot understand each other, even being in the same region. Even in the same
I'm
region.
victim to it. I'm victim to it.
So what I'm saying is that if there's a dialect that we can't understand,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that it is not part of our pack.
Yeah.
So imagine now you have a non-Armenian examining, let's say, Hittite and Sumerian. Okay, without our presence, we're not there. So he's doing all this, mental gymnastics and everything else, writes everything down. This is what they said. And 100 years passed. Now we have 100 years of crap to clean up.
Yeah, it's true.
And on
so
top
true.
on top of that, the adversary that say, no, we
pounce on it.
We have been using it for 100 years. You might be wrong. What are Armenians doing? Listen, we have found thousands of Armenian words in the Sumerian dialect, which takes us already thousands of years back. So forget about the Armenian invaders in Urartu. Forget about that. We're already in Sumer, the same place. So we've been around in the same place for thousands of years, and we're trying to show the world that, listen, it is true. We are the most ancient witnesses of human civilization, still around like dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Beyond all odds, we're still alive,
Yeah.
right? And we're trying to keep the small land that we can amongst all the hyenas. Anyway.
Yeah, and I think Nato had a question related to it. He was saying any info on the Armenian, or actually Ottoms being Armenians and speaking an Armenian dialect, perhaps later getting mixed with the Syrians and.
Ottom already tells you that's an Aryan, connotation.
Yeah.
And the Aramaic and all that. What is this nonsense about Aramaic being Semitic? Yes, the Indo-European influenced the Semitic for them to designate as such, but
what's that? That numerology right there.
Let me bring this to the screen. This is from
what's that all about?
Lomved.
Looks interesting.
AR equals 33. Ata equals 33. I guess the numbers when you're thinking on
numeric letter values. Ararata 333399 is the same as 369 code, based on which the alphabet is 36 letters.
Is that the 369 that also Nikola Tesla mentions?
Oh, that's an interesting point.
Yeah.
Wow. That's what Mom.
See, this is what you're talking about, the connections.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. See, all these people from different walks of life, they have a piece of one thing, and they want to share the world, right? And this is what I mean. I think that it's that's the cipher that I'm talking about. It's the cipher that we need, which actually is a combination of everybody's comment and opinion into one. You know what a tesseract is, right?
Yes.
Like a fourth dimensional.
Mm-hmm. Not the one from Avengers.
Yeah.
Movies.
So in other words, I cannot
just
show
to clarify.
Just to clarify.
I mean, I cannot show you what a fourth dimensional object looks like, right?
Sure.
I cannot, right? But I can give you a representation of somehow what it looks like in a three-dimensional world.
Of course.
So that's what I'm saying. It's. I think that there is this dimension that we just don't have, not from a metaphysical standpoint. I'm just saying from a perspective that I think there is a layer that we may need to really kind of
decipher,
full-blown understand the repercussions of what we have as far as the alphabet.
We have some more. I think this is Abiding in Truth. Mike, can you see that? Let me. My eyes are a little bit.
Yeah, which one?
This one right
Pop
here.
it up there.
Yeah. Here, I'll put this up on the screen.
So, Abiding in Truth asks, what does Dr. Setyan think about this? Hal plus yan in Aramaic equals living God, Hayastan, and also Ar equals creator, God, men equals son, sons of the living God.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about Ararich.
Yeah, well,
before.
he actually said it's a high versus well, here's lately there has been this commentary that's going around that high has nothing to do with the Armenians. It's just distortion. It should be say Armenians, and not to use the word high at all because it has to do with the Semitic people. One comment about I think that if we can put back his comment At least they can see,
And that
they
one.
can follow. First of all, the word high has been used for at least 6,000 years, so there were no Semitic people in that region. So obviously, from our standpoint, it's ours. But the only problem we have is we can't really define high. There is no etymology for high.
Yeah.
That's the only problem we have. But many cultures use the word high to signify many of the extraordinary things that one to feel. That has to do with gods and angels and so forth, from Native America all the way to other countries. So the idea of high to signify something extraordinary and spiritual, it's always been used. And then also, if he says, "Our Creator, God, Man, Son of Living God," well, the AR thing is already the signification of the God and the Creator. So it's like us being the descendants of Ar, or the men of Ar, and so forth. We have the word, Aryun, Artsiv. We have thousands of words that either start in
with
the middle
Ar.
or end with Ar, which
That's like a prefixed.
which directly relates to anything that has to do with the spirituality of creation and so forth. So I don't know if it's a comment that I want to kind of answer to, but the individual that wrote that comment actually reflects what we have been dealing with for thousands of years, as far as the utilization of the word "ar," and in our understanding of that. Yeah. So "ar," Creator, God, yes, but as I define the "ar" itself, or "arar," it's more of a verb and a perpetual of something that moves, versus it being a stationary
So it's
thing.
in constant motion.
Yeah.
Constant motion, yeah. And that should tell us a lot, as far as how advanced we were to look at, let's say, the universe, and try to define it in a certain way. Remember, I kind of mentioned that the Armenian word or the language is a functional language. It kind of describes things.
Yes.
I think the R and RRL is also one of those things that kind of tells you what something is a function of, what it does to it. It's like a moving thing, a constant motion.
Yeah, which is still alive. It's like you said earlier, like it's in perpetual motion.
Yeah.
What would point, let's say, besides, let's say, the description of the word, in the modern day compared to, let's say, thousands of years ago, with this perpetual motion, what would be certain indicators to, I'm having a loss for words here, be an indicator for something like this, right? Like the word "odd," as this individual described, is a perpetual motion. Is there any other examples of this?
You mean other words?
Yeah, other words or other examples that may indicate that there is this, like, let's say, etymological, I guess, perpetual motion.
Yeah.
To
Well, the way I see the term itself infused into all these thousands of words, more than 1,000 words that we have, I think that kind of describes the breath, literally, of the Creator, many things. How the Creator has kind of associated itself or himself or herself to the things or understanding of nature, and many of the words itself. Or for example, the RRL was utilized in, and actually there was an article that showed that the air and RRL all has to do with not only the creating of things, but also part of the agriculture, and make it arable, livable.
yeah,
Let's say if you want to have your soil arable,
and I mean, and you're literally I have to stress that word, describing what the soil does, what the air does, what the water does,
yeah,
by these words, by these syllables or prefixes or whatnot.
Yeah.
right?
So I think what we're having a problem with is that as our language started influencing others and they took their tangent, it kind of boomeranged back
Yeah.
into sort of spoiling the way we initially pronunciated certain words. And it felt like we have loan words from others that came back to us, but in actuality, it was kind of given, and the enunciation of it and the meaning of it was lost
Yeah.
during the transition. Now it's coming back in a jarble format, and we're trying to reverse engineer again, and to go back to that. So the concept of and ararel, and ararat and airarat and all that, that has, I think, huge volumes of data as far as of our ancients and how they kind of even came up with something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, in Portasar and Göbekli Tepe, we already have the word ara as a utilization of a letter, going up. Even that is a function too. You see, the idea of doing something or creating or performing, all that was signified by a symbol at Portasar to signify ara.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we already can see that our language has been used already at that time.
Yeah.
So we have to also take our petroglyphs back at that time that we're trying to kind of reflect the way we want to speak. That's why Hamlet Martirosyan, I don't think he knew that some of the petroglyphs actually speak Armenian. He says petroglyphs speak Armenian. I would say Portasar speaks Armenian too. We just need to kind of show that it goes beyond our just hypothesis. Actually, that's the case. And I think his name was Shlomen. I can't remember his last name, but I do have all this paperwork that shows how the things are pronounced. And again, you see, from Hamlet's side, he has one piece. I have one piece, and all the other scientists have one. Their pieces. We got to put it together to show a continuum. And the good thing is, the science shows that there is a continuum of Armenian heritage for thousands of years. There is no break. That's what I'm trying to say.
Do you feel like while you're working so hard, like you said, putting all these pieces together to show this continuum of the history of Armenia and all the connections, do you feel like you're running out of time? Like, is there some kind of a... I don't know if I'm wording the question right. Like, I feel like if we don't do this really fast, we're going to be lost.
Time is a human construct.
Not only time is of the essence, I think certain respects we're too late. Try to stop destruction of our memory. Of our ancients.
Yeah.
Unless we wake up as of yesterday. I'm saying from a fact that I see so much effort in not only falsification, but also there is no care in what happens. People are just so disappointed with the current affairs.
This is true.
People are so disappointed with current affairs, both in the Artsakh war, and now with the Ukraine. And then now, COVID's gone. Now, Ukraine war is
something else entered. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? All these
constant distractions.
All these happening. I'm sure many people want to flee from Armenia to go to another place, safe haven. So that place is being depleted. And then,
well, now you have
Vahan. I mean, all in all honesty, I mean, it's, and I'm not trying to say like myself is the example of the rest of Spurkahai or whatever the case is, but in a sense where, as unfortunate as it is to say, the last few years, the events that have unfolded have kind of had some sort of spark and a growth in Armenians abroad trying to kind of latch back onto our history, right? And try to find out more about our history.
Yeah.
Whether they knew a little bit or not doesn't make a difference. It like sparked something in them, right? Like we have to kind of look at that as like a positive thing, as much as it's a negative thing that may have sparked it. I hate to admit it. The same thing kind of happened to me. we've talked about this on numerous occasions, where something so negative, so impactful, where you're looking at family, cousins, friends, whatever the case is, being impacted by this. And it made me think about certain things. I'm like, wait a minute. I got to do something. I got to figure out something. I got to look into this, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case.
It wakes
with
you up. It
yeah.
wakes you up.
But an unfortunate event at some point in all of our lives, doesn't make a difference whether you're Armenian, whatever the case is, wakes you up to look into things. And this is a fact.
Yeah.
This is a fact.
And then I agree. And also, I want to look at it from a positive standpoint too. And what we do right now, whether it's Gevorg, whether it's Hamlet Nersesyan, myself or all that,
Yeah.
we're doing out of our own funds and capital,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Nobody's, and the thing is, you guys are putting all this capital in, right? It shows that there is an esoteric, or you might say something that beyond the finance that is pushing you to do this for the sake of your people and
course.
humanity.
Yeah.
altogether,
We're
right?
not sponsored by anyone, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
We're still not.
On the opposite, though, all those people who are falsifying things at a professional level, they get paid.
Yeah.
Of course.
But that tells you a lot of
They
things,
get
doesn't
paid.
it?
You want to hold that up?
We're not paid by them. I promise.
Yeah.
Do you want to put the camera in front of it?
No, it's all right.
So that kind of shows, that gives me hope.
Yeah.
I mean, even let's say some of the compatriots, those who have gone back to Armenia, and they're trying to strengthen.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of guts to do that, and I have a lot of respect. And as they are trying to cleanse, our nation from within, I guess from my standpoint, I'm trying to cleanse the falsifications and also promote enlightenment from from the outside, because whether we like it or not, the English language is a global language.
Yes,
so
it is.
we have a lot of readers, and I want to relay all this information in English, so that way many people can read it and then translate into other languages for it to be read. We have that capability. Hopefully, with further support, from our, diasporan colleagues, that if they support this humanitarian cause, which it really is, we're trying to save a prehistoric people
It's
from vanishing from the pages of history, and here we are in Burbank, trying to figure out.
Don't give our location.
Hey. He's not CG, by the way. I promise this isn't a deep fake.
Here we are.
This is not a deep fake.
Here we are in Burbank, Tennessee, and, trying to figure out.
Tennessee, you said?
Burbank, Tennessee.
I want to go back. Well, actually, before I go to there's some other questions from the audience, and we'll get to it, guys. I said earlier why I have faith in this generation, this younger generation that's coming up there in high school, and the next generation is after the Artsakh War.
Yeah.
There's some amazing programs put together by these kids, and they're doing some amazing things. And there's kids who are in college
All over the
or just
globe.
college.
All
Man,
over
they're
the
moving there.
globe.
They're moving and they don't want to come back.
All over
And they're
the
doing
globe.
amazing things over there. So that's why, and like you said, it's very important, and why we do this in English. We can do this in Armenian.
Yeah.
But that's the problem. If we do it in Armenian, then we keep it within ourselves.
Yeah, we're keeping it with
Then what's the
Absolutely.
point? It's like, we have to make sure that other cultures hear this. They read our books, and like you said, translating all these great historical books that have been written, that are so much evidence, but nobody knows about it. So, let's see here. Amor asks, Dr. Setyan, do you believe there is a biological religious hatred against Armenians?
I don't know about biological, but there is ample hatred, yes. And the thing is, hatred is normally comes through nurturing, and of course we're surrounded with those who are do have hatred, from day one. And I mean, they for example, in the country of Azerbaijan, we have even a museum that shows killed Armenians in the hamlets. helmets, and
I've heard about this.
and they're trying to kind of ridicule and think when they come up with a bad example of hate, they always bring in the Armenian for them to. In other words, I don't know about the biological, but also the religious thing is. We should look at Armenians as Armenians first, and then bring in religion, whether it is Mithraism or Christianity.
That I agree.
We have to look at Armenians as holders of Armenianism, and then into the substratum of other things.
Technically, we have a longer history
Yeah.
as non-Christians as we do as Christians.
Yeah. But at the same time,
Technically.
and then also
that's
let's
true.
say in Islam, we have declarations from caliphs that they mandated that nobody touches the Armenian at all. To
Yeah,
protect
I've
them at
read
all
about
costs.
this somewhere. Yeah.
So we can't really partition and say Islam hates Armenians and all that. It's more of cultural thing that it's very unique to around our area. The two sides, Turkey and Azerbaijan on two sides, and then Georgia at the top, like a sissy, destroying our culture and heritage, taking our churches and then erasing our letters, pretend it's them.
Yeah.
That's how spiteful those people are. So again, I'm not trying to paint a picture of that everybody's bad, but the thing is, there is an instructional hatred amongst the young, for us to be hated, and at the same time, with their own our plundered and pillaged land, they have to continue falsifying, otherwise they'll be caught, red-handed. They have to do it.
Absolutely, they have to do it, especially if it's a one that within their borders.
Yeah.
But like you said, Christianity, I think also, it's so tied in being Armenian, and Christianity is a way of life, and like you said, our history goes way back before that. So, next question, let's see here. The questions are kind of random. They're jumping from one thing to another.
Yeah.
Let's see. Nato had another question. This one, Mike, can you see that?
So from Troy to Arams and all the way to the UD at the east. So what is the story when it comes to the north? How did the Georgians come to be with all the Armenians all around the area?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. There's a 11th century chronicle, Georgian chronicle, that talks about themselves. And they say, they were describing themselves as these subhuman species who were eating any kind of insects and everything else. We have that.
What?
Yeah. So even during those times, they were trying to figure out, who they were. And the thing is, for us to just start figuring out who's who, it's very problematic, especially, with the Georgians. There is so much falsified information about their heritage, and actually their blatant way for them to connect with others to show kind of descent.
Yeah.
Well, they had, based on our research and some of the things that we've talked about, there have been so many peoples that have come and gone from what is now known as modern day Georgia.
Yeah.
The Albanians, that Albanians that don't exist today, not the ones that exist today. They were a different group of people, right? There was. It seemed like there was a hodgepodge of settlements and whatnot.
That's what I mean. They're trying to figure out how to attach themselves
to somebody or something.
somebody, and then it goes down like that. Here's the thing: if you have a concrete culture that you're proud of, you cannot destroy the Armenian church.
No, absolutely not.
With Armenian letters to pretend that it's not Armenian. You just don't do that.
Yeah.
So that already shows the shallowness of those cultures who had nothing to contribute. I'm not saying, again, I'm sure they have a lot of great people, but we're just talking about cultural influence, who they are. And the thing is, we're surrounded by those who constantly destroy and constantly falsify their background because there's nothing there. It's a plundered land.
Yeah.
You know, in Georgia, in Armenia, we say what? Verastan?
Yeah, but also
Okay, Verevistan.
Yeah.
So northern region of
God, I
Armenia.
never even thought about that.
Northern region of Armenia. You know, like we don't care who's there. It's just us up there.
Verevnen.
Yeah, and I showed you the map also that ancient Armenia kind of covers. Georgia too, of course. And sometimes when they say they found this oldest thing in Georgia, again, we have to say modern day Georgia, Armenian highlands. We have to follow that chronology again.
Yeah, they found a bunch of ancient artifacts in the Caucasus Mountains.
Yeah.
God, whose helmet? Whose helmet was it? Argishti's.
Helmet or the sword?
Or no, his helmet was apparently found, and I forgot what museum it was in.
It's in the British.
Was it British or German?
British,
they
British,
found
I
it
think
in like a
British,
cave in like the Caucasus Mountains and whatnot. I mean, these were all occupied by our people. Yeah. The evidence is there.
Let's see here. This next question.
So proud to
I'm
say
so-
our people.
Thank you, by the way, everybody who's asking questions. There's a lot of them, trying to go through them. Let's see here. I mean, I think you've covered this, but again, Al Gray's asking, who or what is the main reason of history being falsified against Armenians, according to you, basically?
Maybe the main reason. There are many reasons why, and there are many reasons that are obvious as far as seeing why they do that.
Financial.
Besides from financial, I think the Armenian history is the bedrock of not only prehistory but history of human civilization, because we are the oldest witnesses of human civilization that are still alive, and because we still have land and we're still alive, it only makes sense for those people who want to falsify is to destroy us
even further.
Because if we were just the Sumerians or the ancient Egyptians, which they're gone already, they would have talked about this all day. They would put everything.
Such a
Great
good point.
Armenians
Yeah.
did this, they did that.
It's a good point.
But because
very
we're
good
still
point.
alive, and then also the problem of the contemporary Armenians tying what they do today to their ancients. For others, it looks weird that how can, let's say, this Armenian today be tied to the ancient Armenian of 6,000 years ago?
Yeah.
And here he is talking about his ancient history, unlike others who are no longer around, right? It's like a Sumerian doing something like this, right? Sumerians sitting around over cognac.
Is there any Sumerians that want to drink cognac?
You know what I'm saying? But here's the thing, though. The point I'm making is the Sumerians themselves are ancient Armenians themselves, right? So them sitting around and talking and stuff like that, and hearing others who really want to destroy you, both at the literature level, because they see there's so much influence, and that's why I would always use the word spite.
No.
Spite is key, because whether it is internal, as far as our internal inferiority complex that we have of many people of ours that are, we always like whatever is foreign.
Yeah.
Oh, Greek is much better than Armenian.
Yeah.
This is
The grass is always greener on the other
this
side.
is not the point about what's better. We need to give respect, let's say, to certain things that Egyptians brought. Respect to certain things that, let's say, the Canaanites brought. All these things need to be put in place. Yeah. But that's not happening. They're creating two things that don't exist. They want to remove the Armenian connectedness to many things. I mean, just the idea of removing Armenians from any connections to Urartu, and call it Urartu versus Ararat and all that, actually creating a people that didn't exist as Urartians, already tells you. And on top of that, they tell us the Armenians are invaders to their own lands.
Oh God, I've had a couple.
Yeah,
people.
See, that's what I'm saying.
I've ever since we started this adventure, I've had 3 people approach me with the same notion. I'm like, that's not true.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into it with them because that's
Armenians?
yes. With
Wow.
it, I've told you about it. There are a couple people.
Yeah, we have many.
And I'm like, wait,
yeah.
where did you get this notion from? Like, who told you this? That's the first question. That's my first reaction.
Yeah.
Oh, I heard it from somewhere. Where?
Yeah.
Tell me where.
Right.
Oh, a friend of mine told me. Oh, do you see where this is kind of going? I don't understand why.
Even if a friend told you that, why wouldn't you yourself being Armenian? Wouldn't you question it?
Look, exactly. That's the whole
Wouldn't
point.
you question
the critical thinking portion of it, right? Where if somebody presents you presented me with some sort of information about something, about where this glass was made. If I'm curious about it, I'm going to go look and see where this glass was made. And then if I find some information that counteracts what you told me, I'm going to come and tell you about it. Like, hey, by the way, what you told me the other day doesn't match what I looked into about this glass.
Yeah.
Critical thinking.
Which is lacking nowadays. So.
Oh God,
Yeah,
let's not get into that.
Yeah,
but
and also the last thing I want to say about the falsification reasons. I mentioned that between 1700s to late 1800s, before the Hamidian massacre started, we had a lot of European support on Armenian origins of many things, including their influence of language. And then once the massacre started, obviously they killed the intellectuals, they rewrite history, and then we had the Armenian genocide in the 20th century. Now, obviously, when you leave a gap in literature, others will come into
and trying to fill it
with other nonsense that they want to write. So that's the reason why we feel and we see that there's falsification going on until today, because we're still trying to catch up, and we're still trying to kind of clean up all the mess that we still feel from the times of genocide. That's the reason why. That's why it's all what's happening, because they really made a mess of our existence and history and language.
Well, do you think it got kind of colluded in or convoluted in the mess that was World War I and the events leading up to World War I? Now, I'm not trying to get into like what led into World War I. We all know what happened and whatever, more or less. But there were so many convoluted stories, that in and of itself kind of keeps, it's almost like you're trying to keep a certain direction, and like there's like something that influences it, another thing that influences it, and like you said, filling the gaps. There's some people that were trying to fill the gaps, mainstream narrative or whatever the case is, or bigger powers, whatnot. Right? Because I mean, World War I, leading up to it, there's so many stories. There's so many stories, even during World War I. Tons from so many different angles.
Yeah. Well, just to commentary on the gap, when you're either you run away from, let's say, wealth or treasure of your own, or you kind of neglect it, others are going to value it, and they're going to take it if you're not protecting it, and so forth. And we had a lot of instances like that throughout the 120 years, whether we were not there at the time, or we were forced to get out of there. So imagine the loss of land, loss of people, destruction of literature. I'm not even talking about 5th or 4th century. Let's talk about the last 120, 130 years. Okay, 80% of your people die, get killed, constantly. All right, historical trauma. Children grow up not knowing what's happening. Relocation, dislocation, foreigners writing history about you that's not true, that you don't know that they're writing for you to kind of say, no, you're wrong, right? Now, that's only 120 years. Now, imagine 14,000.
Which is completely open to interpretation.
That's right. That's right. So now we're trying to pick up the pieces, and our ability to pick up the pieces requires a unified front. It requires an anti-defamation league, an Armenian anti-defamation league, for us to be able to protect from it being defaced, to be falsified. It requires a lot of planning and capital.
No.
And I'm
Yes,
sure
it
that we have
does.
enough capital
Yes, it
if
does.
the right people just pay attention to it. You know, we can't just be excited about this information and then go to sleep and then tomorrow forget about. You know what I'm saying? We have to have this continuum of at least effort for us to do whatever we can, however small, to contribute to this cause. But anyway,
Let's see. Al Gray asks, let's see here. He says, does Dr. Vahan Setyan consider having a movement where us Armenians can join, and does some concrete changes in the field of history, for example, what would the movement require besides commitment?
okay, well, let's put a name to the commitments. You know, how about the positive side of creating, let's say, an Armenian global or international anti-defamation league or society?
Yeah. Great question, by the way.
All right. So not only is just a commitment, but now we're inviting, first of all, international attorneys
Yeah.
and lawyers
Yeah.
for them to protect our presence at the international arena. That alone will give us the diplomatic power for us to make commentary at the UN and NATO, whatever it is, when it comes to our interest. We don't have a platform like that. So we wouldn't be surprised then when we are, let's say, hurting at the Artsakh war and nobody's talking about it. We have no diplomatic presence. And the diplomatic presence starts when you have an important cause to make sure that even your essence or your presence is not being minimized or, ridiculed. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We don't have that. Do we have one?
No, we
don't.
don't.
No.
And that's, man, I could get into this topic for the next hour, but I know we're not going to sit here for the next hour or two. But it's, you look at anything that's mentioned and throughout our lifetime, anything that's mentioned is not significant enough to make the news wires, so to speak. Right?
Yeah. And also look at it this way too. We have so many able, let's put it this way, we have incredible human capital.
Yeah, we do.
Right? Okay.
We do.
One thing that our culture has is an incredible individualized mindset and capacity, right?
Anywhere we've settled.
Right.
Anywhere.
Even as an individual,
Yeah.
right? We have done extraordinary things. We have pioneered in all the disciplines you can think of.
Yes.
Okay. We have a generation now that is excellent in technology. We need to figure out. Do you remember during the Artsakh war? We had
they went to some sort of
100 people who were trying to kind of clean up stuff of the cyber attacks and everything else. Okay. Now there was no match to the millions being spent by those countries to counteract. Okay. Well, since right now is the calm before the storm, by the way, I think it's a great opportunity for us to figure out how to be that league, how to be the cyber attack experts for us to protect. We need to kind of prepare not only for the future attacks,
That's a good point.
both intellectually,
That's a good point.
but at the same time, I think that it will show another unified front, and it will be a very good example for other cultures too. Native Americans are facing the same thing. Native Americans are going through cultural genocide, physical genocide. Their language is diminishing. Their medicine men are dying.
Yeah.
COVID really hit Native country hard. So you can imagine they're going through a genocide, but lately they're raising their voices on how can we preserve whatever we got left, right? They show off their carpets, their symbolism and their natural medicine and stuff like that.
Grassroots.
Yeah,
Very grassroots.
So I think that we kind of share the same fate with them.
Yeah, it's true.
And I think we need to also kind of share ideas together on how can we, as two sovereign indigenous people, because Native Americans are indigenous to this land,
and we're indigenous to our land.
To Armenian
Absolutely.
So in essence, we are indigenous. Okay, so let's kind of look at it from that standpoint. How can we have a global presence and connect to all the sovereign nations across. In Vietnam, there are 73 tribes. Did you know that?
I had
There are
no
73
idea.
indigenous tribes in Vietnam.
Wow.
All right, so things like that. You know, there is a bigger world than we think it is, and I think that we have a lot of groups out there just like us who are hurting, and if we can just put our heads together, I think we can accomplish a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. Something now I want to point this out. It's more of a comment, but it's something that I personally I'm working on. Something important that all Armenians need to do is to create a legacy book, basically the Bible of your own family, as to where you come from and how you and the past family members lived. Something you can pass down
great
the
point.
family from generation to generation.
Great
And
point.
that's something that I'm actually working on, not as a Bible, but with my kids and everything, like creating this. Think of it like a family tree, but more of like a
Genealogy.
genealogy type of a thing, to just go back as far as possible from both sides, from me and my wife's side, and for them to know where they came from and things, like when the pictures I showed, I mean, that's a small portion of the last show. And I had them at home laying down, but my daughter's side is like, who are these people? I'm like, this picture that you're looking at is over 120 years old. Her mouth dropped.
Dude,
Like she's like, what? I'm like, yep, you're holding a picture that is over 120 years old.
my mom, I think I told you about this. My mom, like, what was it, like 3 weeks ago, told me that her family, like her great grandparents, they were Meliks. I'm like, wait, what? Like, wait a minute, homegirl, you telling me we're royalty? Like, what's going on over here? She's like, yeah. Like, wait a minute, I need to find out more about this. I haven't yet, but everybody's got a story. We've all got a story, some way, somehow.
True, that's true.
Great grandparents, great great grandparents. Ask questions, guys. Ask your parents questions.
Yep. Learn about your family. Learn about your family's history. Where they trust me, everybody has stories. How they ended up.
Every
here.
single one of them.
Yeah, I think a mental revival is needed. We need to rise up. We need to really kind of be honest with ourselves. To also be humble to all the blood, sweat, and tears that our ancients have put for us to come this far.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't just let it go like that. We gotta give some respect to it. But anyway,
there are people that ask questions sometimes based on what we do. I'm sure you get it too. Like, hey, when you guys look into this, blah 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 blah. Hey, man, if you have any questions, let me know.
I love the fact that
point
people
you in the
think
right
we're
direction.
historians.
I make sure I let them know I am not
just like,
a scholar and I'm not a historian.
Yeah.
But
What did we get ourselves into?
I've talked to them, and if you need any information, please let me know.
Yeah,
I will gladly guide you in the right direction.
Yeah.
So the privilege that I have now currently is for me to work with tribal governments, Asian American community. We even have the Asian American National Committee out of Washington who's supporting the efforts that we kind of are doing within the indigenous community. And I think that our exposure to governments and Native Americans, any kind of minority group, is a good way for us to kind of share our ideas, embrace.
And that's what I was going to ask you, is like this experience that you have with indigenous peoples and what you're doing for them and with them. How can we transfer this into, I guess, let's call it our maybe future movement or now movement or whatever the case is? You know what I mean? Like how can this flare up?
We just need to kind of sit down, bring in a medicine man, who has, let's say, all these poetry and prayers from way back, and he wants to describe how Native Americans see the world.
Yeah,
and actually, by the way, their indigenous religion is very close to our pre-Christian religion. In many respects, especially looking at the sun and greeting the sun and everything, they have that. So those type of conversations are key, and that will create a bridge between two cultures. I had a huge impact in the perspective of Native Americans to how the way they see Armenians as indigenous themselves from Armenian highlands. So you see, now there is a commonality in being indigenous in two different continents, and hurting as a culture, and trying to revive your language, trying to protect it and stuff like that. So, we need to have that kind of a camaraderie with people like that, and vice versa. I mean, they have a lot to learn from us. Obviously, we want to also show them the way we have seen the worldview, and including astrology. I mean, they love the astrological.
Of course, I mean these people observed the skies.
Yeah, you see,
for centuries.
Yeah, I mean, I had the experience. I was in a Hogan. The top medicine man in the Navajo Nation did a ceremony for me. I was the first one ever as a non-native to hear the prayers. So I think it was about
That's pretty cool.
4 or 5 hours, and then I had a lot of anxiety because imagine somebody is repeating the same prayer all over again. It's all dark, and you're sitting on the ground, and he was blessing my path for me to be strong enough to continue helping them.
Yeah.
As a non-native, right?
Can't imagine what a surreal experience that was.
That's
Yeah,
kind of
I
cool.
mean,
like it's like they knew.
I mean, I usually don't have anxiety, so if I had anxiety, it shows you what's happening. But I try to contain myself. But at the same time, when he told me what he was doing, and then when I came out of there into this darkness, and I looked at the sky, and I didn't see stars, I saw galaxies upon galaxies.
Wow.
It was like an amazing, like interstellar experience, amazing stuff. So I just want to show that our ancients seen all these things.
Yeah.
It almost opened up your mind, your vision, and you got to see through the layers of, like you said, the stars. You start seeing.
Listen, I'm a testament to that. I've been part of that. I'm the first non-native in U.S. history to be experienced that. So I'm telling you,
give me a one-way ticket, man.
I don't know. It came the closest thing to interstellar. Let's put it that way.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
So cool.
You're so lucky to have experienced that.
It really is cool.
We're getting some love from everybody. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
We appreciate the kind words. We're doing this out of love. We're doing it for our culture. We're teaching ourselves and having great intellectuals like Dr. Vahan Setyan here and our other guests, our brother Georg Nazarian.
Hey, we wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for him.
Well, he helped us launch.
That's what I'm
He was,
saying.
he's the reason. And,
Valid point.
yeah.
Has to be said. Always
We've
has to
been,
be said.
we're getting close to 3 hours.
3 hours, my goodness.
Yeah, I know. Time flies.
I know.
Before I ask you the time machine question, you being involved in government, and I want to bring it back to now current situation.
Yeah.
What can you tell us? What do you see happening as far as this whole Ukraine situation affecting Armenia and possibly even Artsakh? What can you tell us?
Well, obviously this is all. It would be opinion, information from, let's say, government officials that they think what's happening. What I see right now is there's going to be a huge influx into Armenia. The Russians, refugees.
Yeah.
So we have to get ready for that.
Russian refugees.
Yeah, Russian refugees. And sometimes when they say, it's rather be Russian than Turks.
But to be specific, from the Ukraine region.
Well, the Ukraine also Russians.
Russians too. Yes.
Even Russians
Just
too.
to reiterate, because sometimes people,
Yeah, and foreigners are coming in, and because of this, they have the capacity to buy a lot of dollars. So they're taking dollars out of Armenia.
Yeah,
that's going to hurt Armenia
true.
more.
Yeah,
and that is kind of going to be a very dangerous situation right now. And I would kind of plead the government to be careful and get ready for this wave. Besides from another, a wave of attacks. At the same time. I was with King of Ivory Coast of Africa a few days ago, and we're talking about the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. And he kind of asked me what I thought, what's happening, and from my opinion is that they pushed Putin to a point of, I had it.
Don't poke the bear.
Yeah, so they woke up the Russian bear. And the thing is, Putin is the most cleverest political chess player in modern history. Now, take it the way you like it. Is the guy, I'm sure, has thought 10,000 ways of not doing this, but he did it.
Yeah.
Now, we need to know what the end game is, right? We need to know, because sometimes when we have a wonderful chess player, we think that he did a bad move, but we don't know whether that was really
Yeah, it was a
intended
sacrifice
or
or
not.
something
Or how many
like
other
that, yeah.
moves he saw
Yeah.
ahead before
Yeah.
he made that move.
Yeah,
Because
so-
when you're playing chess,
yeah.
you think
because
about 10
because
other
during
moves.
war, it's like it's the typical Sun Tzu art of war. You have to make sacrifice.
Yeah.
Or pretend to look weak
just that.
to your enemy and whatnot. And there's God too many more.
But
But
the thing is, when you're playing chess, how many moves are you thinking ahead
True.
of time?
Yeah.
oh, absolutely,
Before you make that move,
absolutely.
right? So
and how many
that's what
how
he's
many
saying
famous chess players have ever if anyone that follows chess have sacrificed the queen
Yeah.
to get to victory.
yeah,
Oh yeah, and the thing is, it comes down to a couple of things. It comes down to banking, and it comes to resource.
Yeah.
All right. So we know that in Ukraine there is a huge resource of many
Yes.
things. Okay.
Yes.
But at the same time, Putin is being turned. I mean, Russia is being turned into an island. Many companies are coming out.
It's true.
Right. So they want to test to see Russia's capability for them to sustain themselves,
Mm-hmm.
even to a point where removing him from the SWIFT system.
No.
Well, here's the thing, though. If you're an indigenous country as an island, you can create your own sovereign banking system.
Bingo.
Okay. Now, and he's not alone. He has China there and so forth. There's a lot of support. So if
ex-Soviet countries. That
Yes.
will-
Soviet countries
Yes.
too. So if they're if they're testing to see whether Russia can survive, even let's say like Louis Vuitton and Hermes take our stores out. It's like the sanctions are only hurting to those who are doing
The
sanctioning.
ones who are making the sanctions happen.
Yeah, it's nonsense.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
at the same time, I think that I don't know. I'm sure that from Putin's side, there has been some miscalculations of how far this can go. I just feel bad that innocent children are dying.
There are going to be people that are suffering.
Even let's say Russians in the United States. I'm sure there's going to be hate crimes now against the Russians, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Yeah, it
Just
is.
like
It
in
is
World War
happening
II.
on a small scale.
Yeah.
It is happening.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's a mess out there. All I know is that it's about the resource, and then Biden is trying to figure out how to, negotiate with Venezuelans and in Iran. Even though
Oh, well.
1/3 of resource is over here, we can be
That's-
independent, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
one thing that boggles my mind is the fact that we can be independent and we're not doing anything about it. And even if he goes to Venezuela, he's still buying. It's a third party
Yeah.
situation, and from what I hear, that oil itself is very thick. So to get that to actually, I guess let's say dilute it,
Yeah.
it's a longer process.
Yeah.
So
And that's the thing. I'm working with some organizations now that have the capabilities for them to change this the composition of the thickness of the petroleum.
yeah,
They want to bring it to Africa. You see, Africa is a huge exporter of petroleum.
Wouldn't that technically benefit the people from that
Yeah,
continent?
that's right.
I mean, not in the way it's been benefiting them for the last few centuries.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know.
I don't want to get into it, but you're picking up what I'm putting down.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I think that of going back to our country,
Yep.
of our motherland, that this war is really, I see this negatively affecting the composition and the integrity of our walls of Armenia. And I mean, I haven't served in Armenia. Obviously, I'm in the diaspora. I have no room to make comment on what can be done or what should be done, right? But what I see is a huge danger, knocking on our doors, whether regarding this war. And of course, even Ukraine is very good friends with Azerbaijan, who was, supplying the phosphorus, and all
bombs.
all those things. So, and then at the same time, our people are very weird sometimes. They will support something they shouldn't. They're standing out there with the flags of, Ukraine and Armenia, and
I
don't know, man.
I'm gonna, yeah.
Well,
I'm gonna.
you know,
I'm
we
gonna
don't
play-
like to
I'm
get-
gonna
we don't
play-
like
I'm
to
gonna
get-
plead the fifth as far as that's concerned.
you better clean.
I am pleading the
because you
fifth.
are not gonna. No, we try to stay out of politics.
Should we start another
Yeah,
podcast?
You can do it yourself. I'm
Your
not.
fault, sir.
No, I just wanted from your experience, you know.
Yeah, it's all good.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep my
yeah.
Just
mouth
to
shut.
my question was more related of how it would affect Armenia.
Yeah.
You know, but
Well, I mean, it makes sense.
hopefully
It makes
not.
sense to what he's saying in terms of like the influx of refugees getting into the country. I mean, look what we've seen happen over the last 6-7 years. The Syrians into Germany, France,
Yeah.
and whatnot because of what happened.
Well,
in
the same
Syria.
thing was
And
happening in Armenia.
yeah,
and in
but-
Artsakh, nobody was paying attention because we didn't have the diplomatic power for us to
Yeah.
be heard. And now the same thing is happening to Ukraine. And all of a sudden, I'm using Uber, and the thing comes up and says, can you, donate to Ukraine?
Arnold says we should have you guys on our show talk politics.
Yeah, you would say that, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would.
Book it.
Make it happen, bud.
But what else? You have anything you want to announce? Anything coming up?
Yeah.
Wait. Hold on. Question.
Wait,
Time
the
machine. We gotta ask you a time machine question. Hold on. Sorry, I take that back.
So
All right.
hold on. So we had it's a little quick backstory. Was it New Year's Eve? New Year's Eve this happened,
The New Year's show.
the New Year's show with the
Q&A
Wise Nuts
show,
guys.
yeah.
So we have a avid listener from Toronto, Armenian guy. He goes by Connor
Anderson.
Connor
But
Anderson.
his name's Voskin.
But his name's Voskin.
Canadian.
Don't ask
Canadian
why.
Armenian, I
He's
should
got a
say.
whole hockey reason to it. It's kind of awesome because I'm a hockey guy, whatever. Anyway, so he asked us, it was a great question. So we decided to steal it from him. If you had a time machine and you were to go back in time throughout Armenian history, any time of Armenian history, what would be your preferred time or time frame that you would want to revisit and maybe be a part of?
Be part of. Because there's so many questions throughout the last, I would say, 18,000 years of our history, at least. I would want to go back in time where the petroglyphs were being carved on the walls, and the reasons behind it, and the people around that time, because that was the start of kind of human civilization as far as the way they see the world and stuff like that. And I would I would see it as a revelation, as anything beyond that, because that was the spark that led to everything else in human history, just the carving on a wall. And we can tie it with a lace from petroglyphs all the way to our letters today. It's like a unbroken thread.
So you're basically looking to go back to the very beginning.
Yeah, very beginning of where they started to kind of see the world and represent it on the caves and through the petroglyphs. Yeah.
We'd have to give you a couple of hammer and sickles.
Just make sure that time machine has a couple more seats. I'll join you.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Take a couple bottles of these.
Yeah.
Show the indigenous people what it's like.
That's right.
So back to the question I was asking you. Anything new coming up? Anything you want to announce?
Yeah. Well, the idea of the etymological foundations of the Indo-European languages connecting to the Armenian, that I want to publish as soon as possible, before I commit myself to big projects in healthcare economic development that I work both internationally as well now. There is an opportunity for me to go to Africa. Hopefully, not before summer, but I've been asked to go to Africa with the king and the queen, and to look at the lay of land in Ivory Coast and see how we can help them. And I think it's a huge opportunity because we know that we want to do healthcare there. We know that we have the physicians from here who want to travel out there to help them, and I think it will create a bridge between the two countries, you might say, and that is very exciting, very new.
Of course, that's huge.
And that's the thing. I was kind of reflecting on how far I've come, and I'm trying to figure out Why me as far as doing these extraordinary things with extraordinary people in life, right? What does Armenia have anything to do with, let's say, African royalty, and then we're trying to figure out how to help them with healthcare, and then being part of the Native American community to a point of being part of them. And I want to find the answers, but instead of me trying to find why, I want to see how far this goes and how many lives I can, positively affect and impact. Because when I kind of spent time on the reservation for a long time, and I saw their children, they're just like our children. They get scared, they laugh, and they have the same fear of things. And when I look at the children, and I'm saying, my goodness, all these children are the same. We're the ones that are kind of partitioning them into toward certain worldviews that they shouldn't be part of. And I think that it's a very good experience for me to kind of write about and tell to my children when they grow up. So that's what's happening.
It's an interesting question to ask. Why are each one of us doing everything that we're doing? Right?
Well, we thank you for everything that you're doing. Especially for the Armenian cause, and for bringing all this information to the forefront, teaching us your books, your writings. You need to do.
Don't put more pressure on the guy. You need to.
You need to put more information out. You need to know it's because he's doing his part. Hey, you know what?
Hey,
he started
man.
it. You gotta keep going.
The guy's got enough to think about.
No, but I've read your books, and I think they're written really great. It explains everything, and I really can't wait till your next one. And you're always welcome back here. We always want to
he
talk
helped
about
start this, man. What do you mean
he's so busy back here? He's busy.
Thank you. Listen, the honor is all mine. And we're not. I'm not teaching. I'm kind of sharing ideas for us to learn together.
Yeah.
And I always keep an open mind whenever new information comes in for me to learn from that too. And listen, we have only few of us in this planet, and we got to do what we need to do to help humanity, and then to help one another.
Yes.
And then for us to sustain ourselves.
Get your house in order first.
Yeah.
We
have to do that.
And you figure everything else out, right?
Be great examples for our children. And we talk about Ukraine and the devastation there, and I've seen devastation in native country, and I still do.
Yeah.
Veterans eating out of a trash can, children with cancer, nowhere to go, and right here in the United States. And I think it's important for us to experience those things, to not only to value our life and our families and be grateful of what we got.
Yeah.
And also at the same time, it kind of has a reflection of how much time do we have left. Seriously, let's ask, do we know how much time each of us have left on this planet? We
absolutely
don't.
True.
And I think that, that right there is a energy enough for us to take that and say, listen, whatever I need to do, I got to do today for the sake of not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow, Anyway.
Provide substance to everything you want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, we thank you. And
thank you,
we like I said, you're always that seat is always available for you. And when you come back, we want to talk about more.
You just embroider his name on that seat from now on, because I don't know if anyone's ever going to sit there, because we get like Zoom calls or Google Meets or whatever the case is. Just embroider his name on the seat. Why not?
We're at the endemic, so we're going to see more people.
You know what we should do? We should, every time we have an actual live guest, to put their name on there, so later on we'll have this wall of, or take a picture.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, why not?
But so everyone, thank you for joining us. Hope you guys enjoyed this show. Again, Dr. Vahan Setyan is in the studio with us live. I want to mention that our next live will be April 7th with Herosner, Beokyan, and this will be the Wizard. Yeah, and this is going to be from the Eskijian Museum. Yeah, I don't think we have any other lives planned right now. We'll have other podcast episodes, but as far as lives,
Harajjan, get ready.
yeah. So I think he's with us watching. So again, that will be at the Eskidjian Museum, April 7th, 7:30 p.m. And we'll be talking about the rugs from the 18th and 19th century, and then the orphan rugs after the genocide.
Beautiful.
So
I'm going to ask him for him to cover the Armenian rug that Hitler had, which was destroyed when the Reich took.
Talk about that?
no,
Yeah.
Whoa.
And actually, the designs are the same as the Hittite wall. That
Oh,
was
wow.
used. And also the same design that I saw in the
do you
corner.
want to join us over there?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to contribute.
Yeah,
No,
well,
maybe I'll just
come
use
on,
the
man.
commentary from Facebook.
Okay, we'll talk. We'll talk. We'll figure something out.
Whoa,
We'll see,
dude,
yeah.
wait. I didn't. You never. What you been holding out on, man?
Again, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for the questions from our audience. We love doing the lives.
appreciate
This
it.
is great. And, until the next episode, everybody, respect one another, love one another. Until the next episode,
All right.
take care of
Take care.
yourselves.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.